right, the clock in the boardroom just turned to 5:30. This time I would call the Board of Directors meeting for the Southeast Polk Community School District. The meeting of October 1st, 2020 to order. Karen, can you call the roll?
Fisher,
Here?
Nave,
Here.
Handy,
Here.
Kraus,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
Crab,
Here.
Slings.
All right, we have a quorum. Item 1B is agenda adoption. Dr. Halupnik, are there any changes?
There are none.
Okay. Motion?
Motion to approve?
That Rick?
Yeah.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Karen?
Nave,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes. Okay, next item is 1C, district vision and mission. Rick?
Southeast Polk Community School District. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
All right, item 1D, public comments. We have some that have been submitted electronically from the last meeting to now. We'll read those, but in the meantime, is there anybody in the queue? All right. We'll go ahead and read those. And if anybody has public comments, I will say, I'll just say this for the benefit of the public. We get lots of emails. I think all the board members read all of them. When I get emails the day of the meeting, I don't necessarily get them read before the meeting. So that's just sort of a tip. If you want a board member to read, to get it read before the meeting, it helps to get the email out sooner. The other thing I would say is just a point of education for the public. When you see an item on the agenda that's appropriate for public comments, and we're pretty liberal with public comments, we want the public to comment on items before the board. But when you see an item that's in topics for discussion, that means it's on the agenda for just discussion. It's not an action item. If you see the topic in old and new business, that's when a vote would be taken, so just know that if you see an item on the agenda as a topic for discussion, the board intends to discuss it, maybe have a session about it, learn something, take information, but there's no actual action item for that item. With that said, Mr. Crab's got some of the comments that have been submitted digitally since our last meeting hey, we have two people with sheets of paper. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. So I'm going to read off the date these were submitted since they weren't submitted today.
Okay.
So the first one was September 23rd. Cher Brown, 4803 Wisconsin Avenue in Des Moines, Iowa. The comment was, can we get another parent survey done to determine how many families would consider 1, hybrid 1, 2, hybrid 2, or 3, online? Same survey to determine how teachers would like to teach. If masks are required, why can't 100% in-person be offered? We are being told they are protecting us and others, right? So why not allow all in-person learning? I feel some students are struggling with having only one real in-person day for each class, and it has to be struggling for teachers as well. Please consider asking us again what we want. Also, September 23rd, Barb Tuttle, 512 6th Street Northwest of Altoona. If full-time in-school attendance is okay for some SEP students, Harbor students, and IEP/504 students, why would it not at least be considered as a hybrid 1 plan? Why not put forth a plan that contains the goal of getting students back into school full-time? Then, as you did this summer, send another survey. Let the people's voices speak, in parentheses, students, parents, and teachers. September 24th, Jamie Batten, 402 17th Street Southeast of Altoona. I think you guys are doing a great job and I am loving this hybrid stuff, and my son is doing amazing with it and loves it too. September 24th, Gary Thomas of 7049 Southeast 32nd Avenue, Pleasant Hill. We have cheated our students out of not only and structured education, we've cheated them out of their social childhood. We've allowed political parties to decide what is best for our children and have turned a deaf ear and a blind eye to the needs and desires of the taxpayers. I fear the long-term effects of non-social learning will be devastating. What will the long-term effects be on this generation of children? They need each other more than any of us will ever know. I believe it is time that our kids go back 100%. September 24th, Craig Nave, 9500 Southeast 6th Avenue, Runnels. Why do we need to maintain 6 foot social or 6 foot distance in the classroom with masks? Is that a state requirement? Why are we at home when several other schools are successfully going full time? September 25th, Tisha Jacob or Jacoby, 2665 Northeast 52nd Court. My 2 children are suffering in this hybrid 2 model. They have both been begging me to go back to school full time, and I feel terrible for them. My son used to be a B average student. Last week, we got his grades and they were all Fs and 1A. He spent the entire weekend working on his schoolwork, and he still has 2 Ds and a C-. Every morning on virtual learning days, I go through Canvas trying to figure out what he needs to do for the day, and I make him and his grandma a list. We thought we were doing everything right, but we are not. None of the teachers put their work in the same place, leaving us to guess and dig around for it. It is awful, and my son's mental health is really suffering. He now has this nervous shake he does constantly when doing his schoolwork. He is so nervous now, and he used to love school. Please, please, let's get our kids who want to return full-time to in school full-time. I am begging for the well-being of my family. We are trying so hard, but still failing our kids. Two more. September 29, Connie Wright, 1503 2nd Avenue Southwest. How do you propose to get kids caught up in classes when they are getting less than half the assignments and virtually no face-to-face time with learning instructions? How are students to gain any knowledge in shop class when they are in week 6 to 7 without even starting projects yet? Some of these are college credit classes. Why are kids running in PE classes and required to wear a mask? This seems a little extreme. If sports can meet every day, then why not clubs? And last September 29th, Kelly Platt, 5168 Winchester Court, Pleasant Hill. Is the board using the CDC positive case percentages to determine return to school? If so, I don't believe these guidelines paint an accurate picture to determine whether kids go back full time. What if the majority of those numbers are from people in nursing homes or care facilities, or the 18 to 24-year-old population that seems to be going out that have no interaction with kids nor have any of their own? Why should that dictate whether our kids go to school? We need to focus on the environment and what others are doing, what others around are doing. The Indianola Elementary School that goes year-round started school at the beginning of August, and they've only had to have 1 classroom quarantine for 7 days. It's almost October. They go every day from 8 to 1:30. It's either 100% online or 100% in school. Waukee has been successful as well, and they are a huge district. Most of these kids have been in close contact with multiple people at soccer, baseball, football, dance, and you name it. I can assure you they are not socially distancing at the recommended 6 foot apart either. I don't believe them going back full time is going to have a significant impact in positive COVID cases based on everybody's current behaviors. Wearing masks and washing hands seems to be working just fine.
Thank you, Chad, for reading those into the record. Jason, have we had any other comments come in while we've been doing those? Okay, at this time, did somebody say something? I guess I didn't ask the board secretary. Have you received any written comments?
I think that might be Kevin. Kevin, you're coming through squeaky.
Sounds like Mickey Mouse. Charlie Brown teacher or what?
Well, I guess if he finds any, we'll get those read in. My guess is he hasn't, but this will be the night he has. But, okay, we'll move to item 1E, consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second. Andy.
Any discussion or questions?
Pretty straightforward.
All right, Karen?
Andy,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Okay, Roman numeral 2, old new business. First item is A, modified allowable growth, special education.
Is there specific wording that needs to be read for these?
Kevin's coming up right here.
Just the recommendation as approved. I need the full dollar amount in there, though.
Okay.
Regarding the special education deficit, I did update the information for you. Sorry about my camera before. The education deficit grew to $3.9 million this year, mainly to a few different factors. We had a sharp increase in wages and benefits of about 11%. We had an increase in overall revenues of 4.3%, but our Medicaid billing revenues dropped 30% this year, simply because the kids weren't in school beginning in March. So there are no services to bill for during that time.
Okay.
And we continue to pay our associates and our staff during that time.
Kevin, do you have an idea if those, if that was factored back in some way? Did we probably still went up? I guess you said 11% for,
Yeah, we would have, it was about $550,000. So really, if we had that Medicaid revenue back, the increase from the previous year would have been very minimal.
oh,
Less, yeah, but if you take 550 away from there, less, it would have been less than a
okay.
couple percent.
Jason, is the wording for the resolution at the bottom of that page?
Correct.
You want to
Any
make the
questions?
motion, Adam?
Sure, I'll take care of it. I move that we approve the request for increased modified allowable growth for submission to the School Budget Review Committee in the amount of $3,887,797 for the special education deficit for the 2019-2020 school year.
In a second.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay, Karen?
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
All right, next item is Roman numeral 2B, modified allowable growth, LEP.
President Fisher, board members, again, I updated the board agenda for this. The LEP costs in excess of our funding amounts to $395,000 this year. It's about a 17% increase from the previous year. Again, we get funding for students in the EL program through 5 years. Everything on top of that, we continue to pay, but that's all the funding we get. With this, along with the special education deficit, I did forget to mention that this funding is a year behind. So the certified enrollment that comes up in the previous years what we budget on, but also this is authority, not cash. We get the cash later based on what we submit for budget, in this case for the FY22 school year.
Can you just tell us what LEP is again, just for the record?
Oh,
Language,
Limited English proficiency.
limited English proficiency programs, yes, ELL, same, that's synonymous with ELL,
I think
English
there are at
language
least 3
learners.
acronyms for that program.
Yeah,
Language
Would-
learners.
Yeah. it's-
Would it be too much to ask if we start having acronyms in there, if we spell out what they were? Because I think we hear English
agree.
language and
Yep.
so appreciate it. Thank you.
I can do that.
I think I still need a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right.
But we've got to have the full text in it, so.
Oh,
you
yeah,
need
we
the
need the dollar amount.
Correct.
If you have it there, it's on the bottom of the,
Just read the bottom
The
thing.
$395,000 one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I just move to approve administration's recommendation for the increased modified allowable growth for submission to the School Budget Review Committee, SBRC, in the amount of $395,246 for the LAP instruction cost and excess of funding for the 2019-2020 school year.
Second.
Okay.
Made me read.
that's one of those sticky
Guess
ones.
that's what happens when you make the motion, right?
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, Karen?
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Crowell.
Yes.
All right, that concludes the business meeting portion of our meeting. We're going on to Roman numeral 3, which are non-action items, topics for discussion. Item A, enrollment. Mr. Horton?
Good evening, board. We've, over the last few meetings, we've had a lot of conversations about enrollment. But the sum total of our conversations have really been basically the same message that we have fewer students in our schools right now than we did a year ago at this time. Currently, we have 63 fewer students than we had a year ago, which was a little better than our last board meeting, which is good. But as you may or may not be aware, the beginning of October is the start of certified enrollment, and those calculations that'll be completed here in the next couple weeks. So without really much further comment, do you have any questions that I could answer tonight?
Joe, is that 63, do we have any idea, is that just open enrollment things or? Normally, we're obviously positive at this time, so do we have any idea what the decline for? Is it COVID reasons? Just different opportunities, or do we know?
It really is kind of a mix of all the above, but I would say this. The thing that I have seen at looking at what we call exit codes, like if a student or a family were to exit the district, they would get a particular code in our student information system. And when I look at those exit codes, the thing that tips me over more than probably anything else is just the mobility of people as they move, not only to different communities in Iowa, some in the area, some are communities I've never heard of, and then on top of that, the one that tips me over even more is how much mobility there is across the country. That literally from Arizona to Florida, and I've said this before, Arizona, Florida, Maine, literally all over the country, our folks are moving. And, whether that's good, bad, or whether it's COVID driven, or whether it's economics, or job changes, or whatever, what have you, I think it's probably a mix of all the above. So I'd like to be able to put my finger on one. I think that's kind of the culprit.
Joe, we're losing you.
Yeah. We got,
We probably
to
got
the-
about 2/3 of what you said.
Oh, okay.
There, that's better.
Better? Okay.
Yeah.
I think we
I'll
lost.
kind of
your
get down by my
ability.
microphone. It's kind of a mix of to re-answer Brett's question. The culprit is all the above. You know, we've seen a lot of people moving. That's probably been the biggest eye opener for me is that number of families who've chosen to move away, and they could be communities in Iowa. And again, I've said this in past meetings, but it's everywhere from moving to Arizona to moving to Florida to moving to Maine. Those were just the three as I was looking at the geographics of it. When I look at the exit codes that are entered for kids and families who leave the district, I would say that that's probably the biggest culprit is just people and their mobility. But, you know, I can't help but think that maybe it's COVID related, maybe it's economics, maybe it's a job change, you know, maybe it's a lot of stuff. But you know, as I look at these particular numbers, that's fundamentally what what I see when I look at, you know, why people, the reason behind there not being students in the district anymore.
So, yeah, so basically really this is just movement out of district. It's not open enrollment because just to clarify for the people listening, it's not open enrollment's not open, correct? Or is that open because of the pandemic?
No, the normal rules apply. There was a short period, a window of time back in July where they did open the open enrollment window, but that was just for a 2 or 3 week period. But right now it's under normal.
Okay.
At
So
first
this-
glance of our open enrollment numbers today, they're almost exactly what they were a year ago. So it would not be due to open enrollment.
Okay, so yeah, that answers my question. So this is moving out, physically leaving their residence and.
Yep.
Okay.
And another thing, just anecdotally, in talking to several of our peers, they're seeing a very similar pattern.
Gotcha. Thank you, Joe.
Oh, you're welcome. Any other questions?
No, I'm good, thanks.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, next item is 3B, return to learn.
No.
Nope, I got the wrong. Oh, certified annual report.
Turn to learn to the F.
Oh, it is. Certified annual report. Kevin? Uh-oh,
Uh-oh.
We've got no mic.
we have no sound.
Yeah, Charlie Brown's teacher's back.
I'm gonna watch the curtain.
Do you know something behind the curtain?
Like the Wizard of Oz.
You have to come into Lori's seat.
That's right. Is that an upgrade or?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, there we go.
much
Thank you.
better.
Regarding the certified annual report, this is a report that's normally due September 15th. This was extended to September 25th. I'm happy to report that we did report in compliance with all three reports: the certified annual report, the annual transportation report, and the special education supplement. All three of those reports, in conjunction with, with the certified annual report, did give the numbers for what you approved earlier regarding the special education deficit balance and also the LEP balance. Now, interesting enough, and similarly with other school districts regarding the annual transportation report, our cost per mile did increase significantly. We stopped driving kids or transporting kids to and from school and activities in March, but we continue to pay our staff. So there was a significant jump within our cost per mile relative to other school districts. Again, it's kind of a wash because as you recall, there is some money from the state level. If you're above that medium average range when it comes to cost per mile across school districts, we are receiving a little bit this year actually to the tune of about $5,000. I don't foresee us receiving anything more significant for next year, even with the increase in the cost per mile. This year, the staff, the business office staff should be highly commended as well. This has been a different year for us, a very unique year, very many different challenges, but we were able to get everything filed on time.
When will we receive the hardbound copy?
Of the certified annual report,
Yes.
you typically don't get that.
Oh, I thought we did.
You might be referring to the CAFR, the audit report.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
Comprehensive
that.
annual
Yes.
financial report, that's a bigger report. That's a
That's
much
like-
more exciting report. It's much more exciting report than this one.
Aren't they all exciting though, when you talk about
I thought
finances?
this was, what's the report that has all the financials for years and it used to be in a spiral bound?
That would have been the budget. You're either referring to the budget book or this comprehensive annual financial report.
Maybe that's it. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
not this.
That's not this. Normally it's in January, and that's normally when some of our when our auditors come to the meeting to explain that report for us.
These are the submissions to the state.
This is correct.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, in addition to these reports, the state, because of CARES funding, there were at least 4 separate reports to provide to the state this year as well. Any questions regarding the certified annual report?
I'm good,
Great
thank
job, Kevin.
All right. Next item is year-end financial report.
I'm going to try to share my screen.
Okay.
Jason, I don't know if I can right now. Thank you. At your play settings, you do have the PowerPoint. Please let me know if you can see it.
Yes, we can
I don't
see
know-
it.
I don't know if the audience can see it or not, Jason, but I'm going to go ahead and go with this. Excuse my eyes here because I have several different screens and several different pieces of paper I'm looking at. So this is a little bit different not being in person. This is the financial report for the FY ending June 30, 2020. I gotta find my cursor. General fund revenues. Total revenues totaled $78.4 million, an increase. Remember that our supplemental state aid was 2.06% for this year. We had 1.35 million of new money and the enrollment growth of 51.3 student FTEs. Expenditures, just under $80 million. And this is just the general fund again, a $2.2 million increase. The wage and benefit increase was about 3.4%. How that breaks down expenditure-wise within the general fund, you can see those breakdowns with the bulk of our costs with people, about 83% this year. Very similar to what it has been in previous years. So nothing unusual with that. All funds, this is general fund through our nutrition fund. A total of $107.4 million in revenues. It's a decrease of about 8.5 million, due mainly to we had a current refunding in the previous year of just over $5 million. Expenditure wise, $103 million. Again, the decrease of $9.6 million due mainly to the decrease, the current refunding in last year. Expenditure breakdown for all funds by the type of costs. Financial indicators, these are the things I talk about most, and this is what I try to educate everybody about the most, because these are the factors that kind of show where we are at for our financial health. Solvency ratio, see where it came from FY12, but we did drop a bit this year. You know, for the FY20 budget, we were not able to cash reserve levy as much as we could have based on our current cash solvency position. We still had those deficits when it came to special education. We still had increases in SBRC authority for things like certified enrollment, but there was a sharp decrease within the solvency ratio. That decrease, even though it does look sharp, it doesn't concern me as much because we know where that's coming from, and also that it's still outside and above the range as as recommended by the IASB.
What is
That
that?
being-
Kevin?
Excuse me?
What is that range from IASB?
The IASB range is anywhere from 5 to 15%, but not more than 25%.
And the decrease is because of the excess? that
The
we talked-
decrease, yeah, the decrease is that we continue to spend those funds, but like for special education last year with a $3.2 million deficit, we weren't able to go back to get money for that, the cash for that, because we were already solvent at 20, as you can see, the 20% and above in previous years. There's a Iowa code that says you can only go for cash solvency based on a certain ratio, and we were already at that ratio.
So this is really not bad at all.
No, it brings our cash back in line with our authority. So that's the next slide as well. So as we see our unspent spending authority, this is the big one, right? This is the one where if we get this thing below zero, then the state starts talking to us about what we need to do to get things better. As you can see, between 19 and 20, our unspent authority climbed 3.3% to 14.6%. Again, we gain authority with that $3.8 million of special deficit. We spent the money to general fund, but it's specific to special education. So we get that authority back in order to, if we had the capacity to do so for the FY22 school year, to cash reserves for that money.
So just to clarify, is this for the bonding that we've been doing and gonna do with the, just recently voted in 91 million? That'll lower us a little bit on the solvency ratio, won't it?
Yeah, the solvency ratio will definitely be lower just with the numbers here, but I don't anticipate us changing when it comes to our bond rating.
So as long as we're between that 5 and 15%, it really doesn't change our spending authority, right?
Well, yeah, two different things. As long as we're within the 5 to 15% for both spending authority and solvency ratio, as long as we're in there, that is a positive when it comes to the underwriting business for the general obligation debt. I think that's what your question was, Mr. Handy.
Yeah, I think you're following me up.
So if we keep both of them within that range, we essentially have really good credit.
Correct.
Good
There you
credit.
go.
Yep. Good way to put it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Again, the major factors with increasing authority is we increase our unspent balance. Again, the deficits pop into that unspent balance. We collected nearly 100% of our estimated revenues. Our restricted fund balance has increased by 830,000. That was mainly due to dropout prevention. We had a pretty good increase in dropout prevention with planning in place. Some of that kind of didn't materialize this past year. We hope to do that this year. The different other pockets of money when it comes to assigned fund balances, that increased a little bit too to 1.67%. But overall, nothing looks out of the ordinary or extraordinary relative to other school districts and relative to us in the past.
Okay, could you back up on that, Kevin? And
Sure.
just the restricted fund balance increase was because of dropout prevention?
Yeah, so based on our categorical funding, we have pockets of money that are to be used for certain things that are restricted or not restricted.
Right.
If we don't use those monies for those particular purposes, they carry over from one year to the next in what we call a restricted bucket.
Okay.
So in this particular case, dropout prevention makes up the most of this. We did not spend the funds we anticipated on spending. So that carries and keeps its character as dropout prevention going forward. So that just adds to our bucket of what we have for restricted fund balance. So we can't take, in this case, we can't take that $2.17 million to take that into regular programming to pay regular salaries. It keeps its identity so that those categorical funds are spent on those categorical programs.
Like dropout prevention.
Like dropout prevention.
Okay. Now, is there a difference between restricted fund balance and assigned fund balance?
There is. Restriction is typically done through Iowa code, more of a legal law. Assigned fund balance is what we determine in our office. We assign fund balances for things like Facebook grants, for things that are grant and donation restricted, donor restricted, not
Yeah.
necessarily regulatory restricted.
Understood. Yes. Okay.
I made this presentation a bit short this year, so if you have any other questions.
Looks good.
Yeah, we didn't see the pictures of the silos, Kevin.
That's during the budget time, Mr. Handy.
Oh, is that budget time? Okay.
Correct. Everything is a blur this year, I understand.
All right. Maybe I'm like Gary. I just get confused.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm still asking these questions as far as how complicated it is, but okay. Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's for sure. Next item is item 3D, Altoona Elementary Blue Ribbon School.
Good evening, board. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, it's an honor and a pleasure to be sitting before you tonight just to talk a little bit about a very special quality award that Altoona Elementary received, not only representing what goes on at Altoona Elementary, but also Southeast Polk. We were one of 367 schools that got recognized across the United States to receive the National Blue Ribbon Award. We were nominated by the Iowa Department of Education late last fall and completed the application process in April and received official word that we are receiving the award on September 24th. There is going to be an award ceremony in Washington, D.C., or there was going to be, but obviously the pandemic has changed that. But there is a virtual award ceremony that's going to be taking place in the middle of November. I thought this was going to be easy to talk to you about how special this award is to Altoona Elementary. Very proud of all the stakeholders. This is their award. We have an awesome group of students. They're very respectful and responsible. They're motivated by our staff to do their very best every day. They really are. The staff works extremely hard to build those connections and relationships with students, and they motivate them every day to do their very best. Our teachers, they work hard every day as well. It's a 24/7 job. You can't fall off the grid with this job. They are true to their commitment. They're true to their students. They're true to their team. And when you talk about collaboration, and we've been working really, really hard at collaboration and having valuable conversations about what goes on at a particular grade level. If you get a chance to sit in one of those conversations or have an opportunity to visit our teachers in a particular grade level, you'll find out that those teachers have really narrowed their focus. Their focus is on the focus of students learning and students learning to the best of their ability. And the teachers taking that time to adjust instruction and talk about different avenues or different ideas to be able to meet students' needs. So unbelievable group of teachers. The district also is committed to TLC program, obviously, in providing us with an instructional coach and model teachers. That's been very valuable, I think, throughout our building, but it's also been extremely valuable to me because it's an extra set of ideas or extra set of eyes, an extra set of different perspectives from how people view how our building should be operating, what our culture looks like within the building. And they provide that extra support, not only to me, but they branch out and work with our teachers in all grade levels, in all areas to help and support them. That's been a big, big piece. It really has been a big piece in our success. We also have a great group of special education teachers and specialists, reading specialists, title math, title reading teachers. That's been very, very, very important to making sure that we give that extra supplemental support to our students. And we have a need. We've always had a need. But I think in this niche, we've kind of got some things figured out about how we can narrow that focus and make sure that we meet their needs to the best of our ability. Again, 24/7, all the time. They're on the clock. Art, music, PE, band, any of those things, that gives an extra avenue for our students to succeed in the classroom and outside the classroom. There's a great balance there, and they too are committed to what they do. And they're just provide a nice balance to our students. So students can succeed in the classroom. They also have an opportunity to succeed in the music room and in the gym, work with Mrs. Kilman and things like that. One thing I think that's very important too in our building, we have significant needs, and I've mentioned a little bit about that, but we also have an excellent guidance counselor that spends that around the clock time helping to support the needs of our students and families. And I know that she takes phone calls on a daily basis at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Probably one of the best stories that I can ever really imagine somebody going out and above and beyond. We had a homeless family that was out at Mitchellville, Thomas Mitchell Park, living in a tent at one time. They didn't have a meal that night. And at 9:30 at night, our guidance counselor, Jane Kaiser's going out and delivering pizzas. That's what it takes. Office staff, Casey and Emily, and our school nurse, they also complement everyone so well. School nurses worked hard, particularly this year, in trying to make sure there's a balance in keeping students healthy. We've had a very successful rate of keeping students in the school. A lot of that goes right back to Krista Overbroccoli, and she's worked so hard in making sure that students are healthy, and she communicates with the parents to make sure that if they aren't feeling well, they have to take their responsibility in making sure that students get back on track and see the doctor if necessary, so that they can get back in the classroom and be successful. If you ever drive around Altoona Elementary, you would notice that building is in tip-top shape. The respect of our custodians in doing the job. Skip does a phenomenal job. He's our head custodian, but we also have Mingo and Bob that work endlessly to make sure that school sparkles, not only in the landscaping outside, but every corner. And you walk down the hallways, you're not going to see a dust bunny behind a door. You're not going to see a lint on the floor. You're going to see everything that looks shiny. And because they take that responsibility and have that respect in our building, the students too, I think have realized that the modeling that's provided by our custodians, you got to appreciate what you have. And I think we do that. Our parents, top notch. We're transient. We have a lot of turnover at times, but we've got a consistent program with our PTA in supporting us. We might not have the biggest amount of money as far as a budget to operate within our PTA, but they're always there for us, and they give back to the teachers endlessly. They just go above and beyond. And if we have a need, they're right there making sure that they step up to the plate to help us. And really, and I hope I didn't leave anybody out, well, teacher associates too. I've been in this job for a long time as a principal, 27 years. And our teacher associates, they have tough jobs, challenging jobs. They want to be successful. They want to continue to help and support our students, but they also do an excellent job. And then, of course, we talk about the cooks too. They have to put a healthy meal on the plate for our students to make sure that they get the nutrition they need on a daily basis. That too is an important part. So it takes a village. You've heard that plenty of times before. It really, truly does take a village. The last thing I would just want to mention before, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. From the top down, Southeast Polk's quality. The top notch. They sacrifice for everyone. We don't cut corners. Never will, never have. We're going to do our very best. We're going to put our very best forward, very best foot forward. And we accept everyone. We want to make sure that we accept everyone for who they are. We respect their differences. We respect their diversity. We don't compromise that. I also have a family, a beautiful wife, Tammy, and a son, daughter, Shelby and Tanner. Over the years, they've realized that, we talk about a balance in life of a school teacher, a school principal, anybody who works at school. That's a tough balance. They've had to sacrifice a lot, but I'm blessed to have them there too, because they have supported me every step of the way as well. We've got it all at Southeast Polk. We are so blessed. We are so fortunate. And I think this is a great reflection of the award that we received is a great reflection of what Altoona is about, but it's also a great reflection about what Southeast Polk's about in our community as a whole. So I thank everybody. I thank the board for your support over the years too. And we had our moment, but you want to know something? We might not get the National Blue Ribbon Award every year, but we have our moment every day in working with quality kids, awesome kids that do their very best. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity, not only to work in the district, but also the opportunity to talk tonight.
Thank you, Steve, and congratulations to you and your staff and your students. It's well deserved.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
We
I
all
echo
feel
that,
really
Steve.
pumped up right now.
Yeah,
What-
I echo that, Steve. Congratulations to Altoona Elementary, and I would definitely agree with you that that's one reason why I moved here. I didn't get the great Sally Spoke education that the kids are getting today. But that's one of the reasons why we moved over. I work in the city and see it every day. So congratulations to you and your staff and everybody that worked so hard to do that. And I'll just take time to congratulate Sally Spoke in general. So thanks for everything that you guys do.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Appreciate our friendship too, Brett. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
I just want to say congratulations, Steve. Altoona, I love all of our elementaries, but Altoona Elementary has a special place in my heart. I'm an alum of Altoona Elementary, quite a few years ago.
Just asking
Yeah,
for a
I
friend.
know. But I'm so happy for you. It's so well deserved. I know all of our teams everywhere work so hard. And so it's so nice when somebody else can see all the good things we do. And I know when the board's done our visits, it's always, and maybe it is because I have a connection to Altoona Elementary, but I enjoy getting in the building and see all the changes and all the good, great things that are happening with great people. And just thanks for all your hard work. And it's nice that the state can recognize it and the entire country, and to win a national award, just amazing. So good job to you and everyone there.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll jump in quick too. This is Chad. You probably can't see me on the camera, but
Hi, Chad.
I mean, I know there are a lot of hands, a lot of hearts that went into winning this award, and into doing what you do every day. I also want to acknowledge that it takes a great leader, and it sounds like you're doing an amazing job. And when we did the board visit last year, everything, like you said, was tip top, and in hearing about what your model teachers are doing and how you guys collaborate was just first class. So thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Chad. I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks,
Good job.
Thanks,
Excellent
Steve.
Yeah.
work.
One last thing I want to mention too. We talk about great leaders. You've got great leaders out of the district office too. Dirk and Joe, everybody who works and supports us. That's really, really important. It supports our teachers and supports everybody across the district, but also curriculum director, Joe Wallen. She works so hard. She's worked so hard in providing quality staff development to our teachers and giving us guidance to make sure that we are strong in teaching that core curriculum. So there's so many pieces. So if I left somebody out, I apologize, but thanks again, board. I love it. I love Southeast Polk, and I know everybody at Altoona Elementary loves Polk as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.
Steve.
Well, that's fun. That's what it's about. Next item is 3E, high school RAM plan and semester finals. I can see
Good.
Mr. Pettit.
Good evening, board. I've tried to join in a couple times over the last several months remotely. I'm just making sure everybody can hear me and before I start going. So sound all right?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. So I'm going to go through and talk about the RAM plan. For those of you that have been on the board for a while, the RAM plan has been around for quite a while. And there's been a few different versions of the RAM plan. And with really the college career readiness initiative that we've been really taking charge with for the last several years, and then with the COVID pandemic, we think now it's time to make a change with RAM plan. So I'm going to start off by just going through kind of some history on when the RAM plan was originally created. It was, or it is still, an attendance incentive that's connected to semester finals. Originally in the 2000 school year, students that qualified for the RAM plan, and again, it's on a class-by-class basis, they could opt out of every single one of their finals. Students, of course, could still take their finals if they want, but it would have it wouldn't have a negative impact on their grade. In addition to the RAM plan, we have an academic incentive program called our Gold and Silver Card program. It too is connected to semester finals. If students earn a 4.0 grade point average from the previous semester, they earn a gold card. And if they earn a 3.5 grade point average in the previous semester, they earn a silver card. And gold and silver cards also provide students with opportunities to opt out of finals. In 2012, we had a pretty significant revision to the RAM plan. I'm calling it RAM Plan 2.0. Again, it's still an attendance incentive, but we limited the number of finals students could opt out of. We increased the number of days they could be absent and still be qualifying for the RAM plan. It increased from 2 days to 4 days, but we did limit the number of finals students could take. The primary reason for that was because, again, to prepare students for college, we felt like they needed to take more high stakes assessments that were connected to the classes that they were taking. So we did have a significant increase in 2012 in the number of finals that students were taking. So we did expand our semester finals, testing period from 2 days to 3 days because more students were taking finals. But we did not have a change at all in our gold and silver card incentive. So students could still opt out of 2 finals with a gold card or 1 final with a silver card. So last winter, we actually started studying this prior to COVID because we were wanting to make a change to the RAM plan, silver cards, gold cards, and semester finals. So we had a staff survey, and the staff was very interested in revising our current practices. And then when COVID came about in the spring, there were recommendations from the Iowa Department of Public Health, also the Department of Education, that really tried to encourage schools to do away with any sort of attendance incentives. You know, the mantra of stay home when you're sick, really flies in the face of attendance incentives. So the semester finals, committee had made recommendations. Their recommendations were to have really a stronger commitment to the semester final. Upon our review, we found out that some finals weren't comprehensive in nature. Not all classes gave finals. Some finals were more like the last project of the semester. So we really, the committee wants to make a recommendation to have a comprehensive final assessment. Again, it doesn't have to be a paper or pencil test, but it really needs to be connected to the course's priority standards. And we want to eliminate the RAM plan, but not take away the ability for students to opt out of some tests. So our proposal is that students will still be able to opt out of 2 finals, but it's not going to be based off of attendance. Every student will qualify to be able to opt out of 2 finals. There are some stipulations. They won't be able to opt out of both semesters of year-long courses. But we feel like this is a really good compromise. It aligns with the recommendations regarding eliminating attendance incentives. It still provides kids with a little bit of a break, not having to take finals in all of their classes. In the next couple slides, I have some data that I want to show you. So back in the fall 2011, that was still on RAM plan. I would call it 1.0. You can see that we had just over 1,800 students in the building, and we had almost 7,000 finals that were opted out of. So with the revision in 2012, you can see we cut our finals by more than half, and increased students in the building. So we had just over 2,000 students, but just over 3,000 finals that were opted from. I also have a breakdown of how many of those were opted out because of the gold card, silver card, and how many were opted out because of the RAM plan. And then the last set of data for fall 2019, that was last fall semester finals. That was the last time we offered finals. We did not have finals in the spring due to the kind of end of the semester. So the proposal, if we were to move forward with this for this fall, we would have approximately, with 2,100, 2,200 students in the school. If every student would be able to opt out of 2 tests, that would be an increase of the total number of tests opted from. But on the next slide, I think this speaks to equity. So in the fall of 2019, only about 70% of our students were eligible to opt out of tests, whether that was because they earned the RAM plan or because they earned a gold or silver card. As you can see, we had several students opt out of more than 2 tests. We had some students opt out of 3 tests, some students opt out of 4 tests. So if you were eligible for one of these incentive programs, these 1,439 kids, they actually averaged opting out of over 2 finals per student. So the new proposal would allow all students to opt out of 2 tests. So 100% of our students would be eligible. It is an increase in total number of tests that would be opted from, but the average student that is opting out would be opting out of fewer tests than what they have previously done. So kind of a summary and some final thoughts, and then I'll take any questions that you have. Is we are still having a very strong commitment to a comprehensive semester final, and we're going to do that in every single class. Semester finals are going to be created by data teams, so they're going to be created by teachers. They're going to be reviewed by professional learning communities or PLCs and instructional coaches, and then building administrators will approve them to make sure that they are aligned to the priority standards within each course. Some of our courses are further along with our implementations of standard reference grading, but those that are still using a traditional grading scale, we will standardize the value of semester finals. They'll be worth 15% of the overall semester grade. Currently, some of our classes have semester finals that are worth 10%. Some of them have it up to 20%. So, you know, our teachers kind of came up with that was a good number that they thought was fair. So 15% will be the value of semester finals in the semester grade. We are going to work with our National Honor Society, doing away with our gold and silver card program. We would like to develop a new academic incentive program, but one that's not connected to semester finals. So we're going to work with our students to find other ways that, you know, we can provide them with incentives based off of academic achievement, but again, not tied to semester finals. And then the last thing that I wanted to add is just, this is just a thought, you know, there's so much uncertainty going on right now with COVID with regards to, you know, last semester we didn't even have semester finals. So our plan moving forward would be to implement this new proposal. But there's also lots of uncertainty going on with just post-secondary exams. You know, right now we require all of our students to take some version of a post-secondary exam prior to leaving Southeast Polk. But as you probably are aware, the ACT hasn't been offered in like 6 months. A lot of colleges are not requiring post-secondary exams as entrance exams anymore. So there's just a lot of uncertainty when it comes to some of these kind of high stakes comprehensive exams. So as we become a little bit more firm in what normal is going to look like, we would really like our semester finals process to look like the proposal that I've put forth today. So with that, I'll take any questions that anyone has.
Steve, talking about comprehensive semester finals, other than a paper and pencil, what are some other examples of those that would be comprehensive in nature?
Sure. Well, I mean, paper pencil could mean like it's an essay. It could be a paper. You know, they could be semester projects. You know, if you are in, you know, a hands-on, let's say an industrial technology class, you know, it could be a final project that takes all of the skills that you've utilized throughout the entire year to produce the final product. So again, our teachers will be looking at their priority standards and developing the best way to measure those priority standards in a comprehensive nature.
Steve, this is Rick Powell. I have to be honest with you, I really struggle with the RAM plan, especially now that you're going to offer it to everybody. I don't personally think that we're preparing our students for the next stage in life if they get to opt out. And I'm imagining if they get to opt out of 2 finals, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them are opting out of maybe a really hard science class like chemistry or something, and probably a tough math class. I'm sure there's other classes. I like the fact that you're recommending that your next to last bullet about your National Honor Society students will propose a new academic incentive program to replace the golden. I like that, but I struggle with just telling the kids they can skip 2 finals, and especially imagining when I was in school, which ones I would opt out of. And I don't know, I just struggle with it personally.
Right. And I respect that, Rick. I think for us, we feel like students have been able to opt out of finals for a long time. The academic, or excuse me, the attendance incentive program was really what we were trying to address here. Really, we want students to stay home when they're sick, and with having an attendance incentive connected to the RAM plan itself, it really discourages students to follow that guidance. As you, I'm sure, are well aware, a lot of students would come to school primarily for the RAM plan. So what we're trying to do is really not change a whole lot when it comes to the amount of final students could opt out of, but try to really be a little bit more true to that stay home when you're sick. We did put some stipulations in about, you can't opt out of your math class final both semesters. Right now, with students could opt out of 4 tests. So, this is a decrease with the total amount of opt-outs a student could have. So the likelihood they're going to take a difficult final is going to be, significantly increased now over our current practice that we've done the last couple of years.
And I agree with you. We don't want kids coming to school sick, especially right now. But I know it's a hard thing to do right now with the pandemic, but we're trying to get kids back to school. And when they do, I just hope we challenge them.
Absolutely.
This is Chad. Steve, I got a quick question, and this might not be much different than what Rick was saying, but it seems to me like the intention of the RAM plan was to reward people for attendance and for academic success in their classes. So when you take those things away, I guess what's the logic behind being able to opt out of a final? Is it just because that's what we've done in the past and this is kind of a step towards maybe not doing that? Or is it a situation where the amount of work that goes into taking a final across all classes is just too much, and we're giving them the opportunity to strategically choose which ones that they don't take to focus on ones that they need to improve on?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of both of those. I think it has been something that our students have had for a long time when it comes to the ability to opt out of some finals. I think our average student, if you're a freshman or sophomore, you have to take 6 classes plus PE. If you're a junior or senior, it's 5 classes plus PE. So being able to opt out of 2, students would still have 4 or 5 finals to be studying for and preparing for. Again, students can strategically choose which ones they're going to not take, but a lot of times that's not basic. A lot of times students look at the grade in the course and not necessarily the course itself to make some of those decisions on which ones to prepare for. If somebody has a grade that's let's call it a 90%, that's on the borderline of an A- and B+, a student might opt out of that test just because they've worked really hard to get their grade to a 90%. Where there might be another class that, it's sitting at a really strong grade that doesn't have a whole lot of variability in it. So again, those are decisions that kids need to make, but the main reason is if kids are taking 5 to 8 classes, that's a lot of semester finals to study for, in a short amount of time.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Pettit, this is Tom Nave. Hey, just to kind of piggyback on Rick and Chad's question too. I know you've talked a little bit before about this being kind of tied to what they're doing in the universities as far as what you're seeing secondary there now too, where they're taking less finals. I mean, have you looked at that again this year to kind of throw some of that into this as far as what we're preparing them for? Whether they're still doing more comprehensive finals or if they're still doing more of the checks along the way?
It's both. Again, some schools are very traditional when it comes to you've got your midterm and your final. Others have projects. Others have just a third assessment. So I think when it comes to post-secondary universities, it's across the board when it comes to what they do during semester finals week. Most schools that I'm aware of still have a semester finals week at the end of each semester at the university and college level. So yes, it is to prepare students for that. We do feel like kids that come back from college, the a lot of times universities finish a week or so early, so they're back in the building. They'll let us know about how much they've had to study for finals, so that is something that we extremely value. And again, I think this new plan will actually be having students take more finals now than what they've previously taken, but still not every final that they could possibly take due to the 2 opt-outs for each student.
Thank you.
Do you still require parent sign off?
Sure, we could. I mean, right now actually, only let me back that up. We do not have, we haven't thought through that part yet. We don't have a process really to put in front of parents, but that's definitely something that we could create.
Because that under 2.0, that was a requirement, correct?
Well, it's always been a requirement to opt out due to the RAM plan. So yeah, that would be something that we will put together. Our students will still have to select which finals to opt from. So there is going to be a communication process of which 2 they're going to select, so we can absolutely put in a piece with parents.
Can I just block my freshman from being able to opt out of any, because he needs the rigor?
Absolutely.
Excellent. I like it.
I like that parent piece of it. I mean, I was on the board in 2012 and it was a lot of angst then. The RAM plan, the board then was not a fan of the RAM plan. I remember lots of discussions about kids, when you get to college, you're not given that benefit to opt out. You get to beyond that, your whole grade for one class comes down to a single exam in the case of law school. So you blow the test, you're done. And so I think part of it is developing, the ability to get through that process. I don't know any other way to put it. I know that ACT is, entrance type things are changing, but yeah, I think there's still lots of semester exams at college. I don't see that changing. And if we want to prepare them, and I think at that time when the attendance incentive, that was something obviously that we would like, the idea of, incenting kids to come to school. Now that's kind of changed. So I get, while that's changing, I guess for me personally, if there is a parent piece in there where a parent has to say, okay, or a parent can say, nope, you get to take them all, that would be helpful, at least for me, to get my mind wrapped around that.
Absolutely. We can absolutely do that. And just like the last, 2 versions of the RAM plan, this is something we'd like to try. We believe it's a good next step. Could there be a day where, we would not have any sort of opt-outs of semester finals? Absolutely. We will continue to review this. We'll get feedback from our teachers, feedback from our students, obviously feedback from the board, and continue to try to, challenge our students. Obviously we want our students to be prepared, not only for the classes they're in, but for their futures. And we think this is a good next step in becoming more rigorous. But there definitely could be some additional steps after this.
Well, I do appreciate your data showing the marked decrease in the amount of exams being opted out of, the new plan back in 2012, that's now 8 years old. So that's good. That I guess those changes sort of accomplished what we were looking at then. There'd be fewer kids opting out of exams. Would you say it went from 7,000 to 3,000?
Right. They went from 7,000 to 3,000 from 11 to 12 in that first change.
Right. Yeah. So that's that's
Yeah.
good.
Well, Steve, this is Brett Handy. If you can't recognize my voice,
Hi, Brett.
Rico Suave voice, through this mask. Anyway, no, I like this, Steve, and if I'm understanding it right, I think it gives an opportunity for, I know you've been a principal and staff member, Sally spoke forever. You probably heard every excuse of why I couldn't make it to school, but I think it still gives those kids that might have had a little attendance issue still some kind of an incentive to prove themselves in a way, but yet focus on the ones that they can, because we have many kids that are challenged. And I think I know if looking back on my studious career and as a student, I would have enjoyed this if I could have said, I think I'm going to opt out of this class or that class. And if I heard you right, they can't do the same class every semester.
Correct.
So I think that's a good, because it's challenging them still. They have to still prove themselves, even though I agree with Gary. I don't think sometimes if you've earned a grade, you've earned it on your own merits of whether you did the work or you didn't do the work. And that's why we have the grading system. So it is kind of tough to put everything on that one grade, but I think you do need to be tested on things. So I don't want to take that away and say we do away with all tests, because I think it does help, but I like to see it not based on attendance, that it's just do your work and you can have some kind of a reward if you choose to, whether it's your hardest class and you're going to accept that B+ instead of trying to go for that A. That's a choice kids or anybody has to make in life. So I think that does help with that process. So I think I'll be interested to see how it turns out and what you guys can make out of it.
What about Mr. Tunks? Do you have any words of wisdom, being an exceptional student as far as this plan?
So I know this has been talked about in recent years, trying to get away from opt-out finals. I understand that colleges don't allow that or don't have that option. But I don't know if this year specifically would be the year to implement that. I think GPAs and grades are down at this point as compared to last year due to the lower face-to-face instruction. So, and I agree with the plan. I think eventually it'd be smart, but I don't know if it's smart this semester or this year. So I think you may see a turnover in kids having to retake the class altogether due to failing the class.
Yeah,
No,
thank you.
appreciate that. That's
a student.
good.
Yes. As a very good student.
You're planning on implementing this, Steve, this would be this fall semester then,
That would be the plan, is to implement it this fall semester.
okay? Would this come before the board like in the next meeting or?
Something we even have to approve.
It doesn't require
Oh, all right. Okay.
And again, one thing I want to reiterate, looking at the slide I've got up on the board, there's 400 plus students right now that are opting out of more than 2 finals.
Right.
And, those are students that have achieved at least a 3.5 grade point average and qualified for the RAM plan. So, those 400 students will actually be taking more finals with this new proposal. So this isn't just giving everybody more than what they had before. It's actually taking away quite a bit from some of our top achieving students when it comes to GPA wise. So that's why I think it's a really good next step in our progression towards college and career readiness.
So I guess I want to come, like Patrick brings up a good point. Can you kind of give us your version on the take of that, or how you think, obviously he can't speak for all students, but I think he's a student representative. So I think he does in a way. I guess, what is your take on that as far as because that is a concern that some of the parents have, is some of the students not being able to keep the grades of what they've had before because of where we are at. So I kind of agree with Patrick on that. Sorry, I didn't mean to shorten your name. But I agree with him on a little bit on that, because is this the right time? I don't know. I mean, I'm just he's got me thinking now. It's because we do have a lot of emails that come through that say my child's struggling. They're not where they should be. So how, I guess from an administrative aspect, how does that weigh on your guys' decision on doing something like that at this time?
Well, that's exactly why we kept 2 semester opt-outs in a plan. If we would have just done away totally with the RAM plan, then I think that would have been a significant change. For a lot of our students that previously would have qualified for the RAM plan, maybe not have earned a gold or silver card, there really is no change when it comes to the number of semester finals they get to opt out of. So, what Patrick is saying, that was considered, and that really had a lot of influence over why we proposed the 2 semester finals opt-outs.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody else?
All right, thanks, Steve.
All right.
Now, we've got return to learn, topics for discussion, item F.
You bet. You've got a sheet, 2 sheets at your spot, and I'll let Jason. No, that's not it. I don't know what that is.
Remote learning from August. It was shiny.
No, I sent it to you in an email. Okay. So while we don't have a specifically adopted matrix to go through decision-making, we do have the Iowa criteria that includes both the percent positivity and absentee rates, and that's that first page there, the return to learn that's showing right now. And then we also at our last meeting talked a little about the CDC school decision criteria that included percent positivity also, along with the cases per 100,000 over 14 days and mitigation strategies, and that's that second page. So what I plan to do tonight was just share our current data so you can see where that data falls at this point, and then allow for. So when you look at for the board, what is your third page? The percent positivity over 14 days today for Polk County was at 6.4%. And that falls in the moderate category for both the Iowa guidelines and also the CDC guidelines. That top chart there that is our chart for each day that we've been in school. It was at 8.1% on the first day of school, and then we spiked up just under 11% for a while, and then it's been on a slow decline ever since, and we're heading in the right direction. As I put that trend line in there on the graph as well, so you can see that the green bar below is at 5%, just to give you that where that sits. And then the map below is just today's map this afternoon for each county in Iowa. The darker the blue, the higher the percent positivity. So it's a good thing that as far as the cases per 100,000 in the last 14 days, as of today, we sat at 234.9. This still has us in that high risk category for from the CDC side of things, but it is getting closer to the orange, and that cutoff there is at 200. And again, you can see overall each day since we've been in school, we did have that spike up, and 3 weeks or so. Absentee rates, as of this week so far, we're at 2.76 as a district. That's been pretty steady and well below that. And we've held right around that between 2.5 and just over 3 for each week as we've gone through the school year at this point. And absentee rates for staff then has really settled down after we had a little rocky start in some spots. And you can see for the last month or so, it's been pretty steady across the board there.
With,
Yep, no, jump in at any time.
Okay. On the student quarantine with the new guidelines that have come out as far as quarantine, you haven't, I'm sure you don't have the breakdown, but do we know how many, I guess, out of those 40 are getting close to coming back? And I guess it's kind of a two-part question. Can those 40 return back since the new guidelines have come out saying they don't really need to be quarantined anymore because of that? Those that haven't tested positive, I'm assuming we would have known if any of those 40 had been tested in the recent time. Are we, I'm sure it's a mix from, they're spread out, they're all not quarantined on the same day. So do we have an idea how many of those are able to come back here in the next week or?
Yeah, none. This includes this is under the new rules. I think probably the biggest thing is that of the when you're looking at the students, those 40 that have been quarantined, none of those were from school related scenarios. And when it's a household related scenario, which is the
okay. Gotcha.
Then that rule does not necessarily, it's a little different.
So those are quarantined on because they weren't even in school. They basically said they're not coming to school because my child has been around somebody that's been tested positive.
Right. I mean, Polk County Public Health would have notified them, told them that they needed a quarantine for a reason outside of school, something that happened
Okay.
somewhere else.
All right. I guess, yeah, yeah, okay, yep. Thanks.
So did I answer both questions?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
I wasn't even focused on the school related versus just the quarantine. So I guess, yeah, if I would have read a little bit farther, I would have.
Gotcha. No problem.
I'll
Lots
stop
of
myself
numbers.
later.
You know, we started a couple weeks ago, I'll say. We now operate under new reporting requirements per the state. And so if there are 6 or more in a population of 100 or more, then we can publish those numbers. And below that, we're not allowed to put those numbers out. So when you see an asterisk under isolation, that's the why. And I just want to be clear, it's not that we're wanting to hide anything from the state. So yeah, I guess we did kind of
Say that again, it's 6 or what? Less?
six or more in a population that is
100.
at least 100. And what they're trying to do.
Below that is an asterisk.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. They don't want people to be identified.
Sure.
And so when you get in small populations.
Right.
So yeah, you can see then our quarantine and isolation data for students and also kind of that pattern of where that sits. And then on the last page, it's the same for staff. And again, remember at the beginning of the year, we had a couple of spikes and issues, and you can see that since that time, then that has. And again, that same reason for the asterisks there. So we'll continue to monitor these things as we move up to the next decision point, which is obviously at the 10-15 meeting. So with that. Yeah, I'll jump in quick. So you also attached the change in guidance. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that applies, I guess, within the schools and outside of? Sure, I can talk to within the schools, I guess. The change, as I understand it, is
the Iowa Department of Public Health and thus the Polk County Department of Public Health, if there is a positive case and a close contact and all parties are wearing cloth masks, at least 2-ply, and they're wearing them correctly, properly, then the not positive case or cases in the case of the close contacts would not automatically have to quarantine for 14 days, which has been the procedure up to this point. So that is the change. Now, depending on how the contact tracing works out, it doesn't mean automatically they wouldn't, because maybe they'll find out that the mask was improperly fitted or not on, or maybe the nose was out, or I mean, it comes down to just what I said, that everybody has on a mask and that it's properly worn during the time of the close contact.
So this takes, in terms of within the school, if everybody's wearing a mask properly and the proper type of mask, it takes away the distance element to quarantine. You could be 1 foot away, you could be 3 feet away. There's no distinguishing between distance at that point.
From the quarantine aspect, yes, but in the guidance, what they did note is that it doesn't take away. I'll just say it this way: the recommendation is still to distance, because the virus could still be spread. The closer you are, the higher the likelihood of that.
Okay.
Again, it's one of the bullet points on the sheet that Polk County Health had given to us, and we've pushed out to everyone.
Jason, do you have that sheet from Polk County Health by any chance?
It's one of the attachments, yeah.
So just kind of throwing that up there for anyone who's watching that hasn't seen that, because it's kind of says one thing and then says something different, which is a little frustrating. The initial read I had it when Siouxland put it out, well, jumped the gun and put it out a day early, was that social distancing was no longer important. And then when actually talking with Polk County Health, they go on to refer that social distancing is still important. They're just choosing not to enforce it anymore.
I think you're looking different between Iowa versus each county. So,
Sure.
So Iowa,
The left. Well, and as far as I know, Iowa hasn't actually put anything out. Individual counties put out their own press release on it.
this says Iowa Department of Public Health. So
This one?
This is Polk counties, but they reference Iowa
that one, but I'm
Department.
saying what we were given by administrative is, it says IDPH guidelines.
Yeah, that's what was sent to us exactly.
Yeah, it's from Polk County. It's not from, it's Polk County referencing Iowa Department of Public Health.
Yeah, so, but you gotta remember, I think Polk County is gonna put their spin on it because of their county. Just as you said with Siouxland,
Sure.
they had a different spin on it. So I think we need to get down to the nuts and bolts and look at what Iowa is saying. Even though we're in Polk County, I think, because I can put my spin on anything that I want.
So what is Iowa saying?
It's just like laws. I can interpret the law to be this when someone, and that's what the legislatures do. They just kind of say, well, you know.
I wholeheartedly agree.
So I think respectively, Polk County has a different spin on it. I'd like to see a document from the Iowa Department of Public Health as far as what is their recommendation and what are they saying, because I completely agree, because Siouxland put it out that day before, and then now we're getting a different version from Polk County. So just to make sure that we're all clear and not confusing things, Iowa Department of Public Health is the ones that making the guideline changes. It's not Polk County. They're just
the go-between for us
Yeah.
because they're our local.
so when we make decisions, I mean, I think we need to have one thing that we're really making the decision based off of, and I think that should be Iowa Department of Public Health.
Well, I mean, I guess the way that I read this is nobody's saying that there's zero risk if you're both wearing masks that are appropriate and you're within 6 feet. I mean, it's not a zero risk situation. I think the way that I read it is the Iowa Department of Public Health is saying that the risk is minimal if you're both wearing masks, which is why they're comfortable.
they're backing off of it a little bit.
Right. I think they're saying that they believe the risk is minimal if you're both properly wearing masks and you're within 6 foot.
That's like no bandanas, no, what do they call 'em?
Gators.
Gators.
What is it?
No,
Gators.
you're talking
Gator.
about
Gator.
gators,
Gator.
no face shields,
No t-shirts up above your nose.
no scarves,
It's
no.
probably what all of us are wearing here. We're
Yep.
the double layer. And that communication has went out to the, if I
Yes.
remember right, yeah.
Yes.
So families should be, aware of that.
And we have a surplus of masks. That's not an issue.
So
So
if
if
a family
anybody needed a
doesn't-
mask,
Yeah, but- okay.
What I wonder though, I mean, I understand the state said, okay, we're going to change this guideline, but if it's enforced by Polk County, will they?
Does it really matter what
But-
Iowa says if Polk County says this?
But what's,
Right or wrong?
yeah. Yeah, I can't argue with that. I mean, but
So let's,
they have to get their guidelines from somewhere.
Right. No, I understand it. I just
Oh.
wonder if they'll really change the third one.
if it's anything like this
Calling the shot.
15%, which has no support by any agency anywhere.
The what now?
The 15% that we
Oh.
got on our first page here, there's no support for this from any agency anywhere. The Iowa is the only one that does anything like this, and it's to fit, it's political. Just hit my microphone, sorry. Oh, yeah, we're good there. I mean, everywhere else is working off of CDC, which is 5. Now, let's, because we're not going to agree on Iowa stuff, because even Iowa doesn't agree on Iowa stuff. So I've spoken with a couple of you guys over this last 2 weeks, and Tom, you and I have talked about this specifically when it comes to K through 5, in terms of switching our model up from hybrid to more of a cohorting model. And obviously, we're not voting on anything tonight, but I'd like to get your guys' thought process on that. Because that's something that's being recommended by, let's see, Dr. Nuzzo with John Hopkins. I'm going to butcher this guy's name, Dr. Hanig of Harvard, specifically because of the multiple contacts that occur. So in my mind, because the epidemiologists have shifted their perspective on K through 5, I have followed suit. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I don't know if I understand your question.
So right now we're doing the hybrid model, the hybrid 2 model, which is the every other day.
Right.
The consensus among many epidemiologists has been that doesn't function because those kids specifically need childcare. So they end up having just more contacts anyway. So
Right.
what their preference model is to switch those groups, so K through 5, to what's generally called cohorting, which means every class is an environment bubble unto itself. So you do away with your distancing within that class, but everything in that class occurs in that class. Lunch, art, music, to an extent that you can, PE occurs in that classroom. So there's no cross contamination with other classrooms.
Isn't that
So-
what we're doing now?
Yeah,
Except
how's that
every other
different
Well,
day.
than?
But then you'd have yes, but it's bringing everyone back and being able to do that.
Right.
So as I've kind of mentioned to a few of you this week, or to a few of you this week, that would be something that I would be willing to move towards, assuming we can get sign off from our staff, and get the buy-in there. I think that's something that we could look at moving to.
Well, Adam, if you're asking for opinions, no offense, but I don't really care what the Harvard guy says. I
I'm with you, Rick.
I think I'm not a fan of keeping the kids in a bubble in the classroom. They need specials. Teachers need a break. Our specials, our PE, or art, or reading specialists, those kids need to go out on recess. They need to get out of their room. I think with the new changes on social distancing being lowered, and the kids have been great with wearing masks, I'm all for going back to school soon, 100%. Wear the masks. Let it go back to what it should be, which was before COVID hit. Now, it wasn't that way last time we met. I agree. But it's time. And I'm not a fan. I would never vote for anything that would keep those kids in the classroom a whole day. I don't especially K-5. I mean, those kids are developing, they're antsy, they have short attention spans. And I'd sure hate to be the teacher in there trying to corral them for a whole day. And I struggle, Adam and the rest of you, with our decision to wait till October 30th, when so many changes have been made in the last few weeks. I know this is not a voting meeting, but things have changed and we need to change with the times. And the way I felt a few weeks ago, I think needs to be revisited by all 7 of us. I wish Lori was here, but that's, you just asked for her opinion. I just gave you
No,
mine.
no. And let me add a caveat. They still do recess and they still get their specials. The specials teachers would rotate into the class as opposed to the class rotating into the specials room. So you make room for the special teachers to keep their types of distance and everything else and their contacts limited in that way. So they're still getting out for recess similar to what they're doing now. It's just you're not having the kids roam the building as they would during a
Yeah,
more
but we gotta let them
traditional
out of
school year.
jail. We gotta let them out of jail.
Right. I'd agree with that, just as far as like the social emotional part. And that's, if you've read through the emails and stuff, that's been probably the hardest thing, I think, on a lot of these kids, especially as they go down younger even. I shouldn't say especially, because it's pretty much been across the board. But it's been that isolation feeling, that everything. I mean, it's the faster we can get back to providing all of our kids all of our resources, the better off we're going to be. And that's basically where I say, I mean, thank you to Governor Reynolds, thank you to our Department of Public Health saying, hey, we're going to take away the quarantine, right? Because last time we were talking about interrupting school and having to kick them out for 2 weeks, back in. The minute they took that away and said, hey, if we're mask to mask, we don't have to do that. I mean, that frees up education. So really, it took away any kind of barrier for us going back and saying, hey, all of our resources are now available to you, because we have a lot of catching up to do. We have a lot of making up to do. And I'm kind of with Rick as far as the longer we wait, the more trouble these kids are going to be in. So, I mean, the fact that they kind of opened the door and said, hey, we don't have to quarantine classrooms. We don't have to quarantine big groups of kids. That's, oh, there's a disadvantage to this. Now there is no disadvantage to going back. So when we put it back in classes, we get them back on their regular schedules. Our reading specialists do their jobs. Our math specialists will be able to do their jobs. I mean, everyone's able to do what they were trained to do in the environment that they were trained to do it in. I mean, there's no better place to be as far as, and we all say.
So what is it typical day? Let's stick with K-5 for now. We can break this down into the 3 different areas. K-5, 6 through 8, and then 9 through 12. Different areas. So what does a new method look like for you for K-5?
Go back to school. Go back to the way it was before the pandemic.
So are we sharing?
I can give you the answer to all 3 of those 12.
So are we sharing lunchrooms between classes?
Well, that would be, they'd have to be rotated. They'd have to be spaced. The principals would have to have a lot of input in that, because that would be an area where you'd get a lot of kids.
Well, yeah, because your mask has to come off to eat. So I mean,
Right. And they'd have, right now they're using those partitions, which aren't very productive, but at least that's some type of barrier.
well,
So I'd agree that lunch would be a challenging part of the new equation, but please let them out of the room.
well, no, but that's the problem I run into here is because especially, so let's take Mitchellville might be able to be doing it because they only have 2 sections throughout most of that school, correct? They have 2 sections entirely, aren't they? So Mitchellville, we could probably make that work because you're talking about 12 different classrooms that have to get through if you're talking about kindergarten through 5. So 12 different times that you've got to give them at least 25 minutes to eat to get in. Someone want to run the math on that real quick? 250, 300 minutes. So 5 hours.
I'd rather the principals figure that out, Adam.
Mhm.
You know,
Well, but
yeah.
Yeah, by building.
I think here's one of the main things that I'm focused on. And back when we first started this, I can't tell you when we first started talking about return to learn. It was, I mean, many, many months ago. Our goal, all 7 of us sat here and said, our goal is to get these kids back 100% as soon as possible when it's safe. And we're looking at the numbers, and we've had, and I will give some credit to the hybrid 2, because I cannot sit here and say hybrid 2 did not work or does not work, because we have shown that it does. But if our goal is to sit here and say when it's safe, we're never going to go back when it's safe, because as I keep what's not. I agree with Rick. We can't delay this time. I mean, I'm okay if we go to the 15th, but I think, you know, that's 2 more weeks of, you know, the unknowns of, you know, where's my child at? Where's my child at? The struggles that are going on. We do need time for everybody to prepare. We still have a responsibility to do our part. And I think that goes to the question of what we do for lunch. And I think for lunch, that is based on, you know, the individual teacher and administrator of that building to say, how do we do it? I would like to see us be somewhat consistent district-wide, but we do have that responsibility to make sure that we are still social distancing when we can. And I know Rick doesn't mean just throw them all back in the building.
No.
I know where his heart is. He's obviously, I mean, I'm not speaking for him, but I think his original approach was to keep people safe and do what's right for staff and everybody. But I think right now the stats are, they are where we are pretty safe. And until we try something different, we will never know. And I've said this before, we have to try. And if we start seeing, you know, I mean, the quarantine piece was a big deal. If I don't have to quarantine everybody else in this room because I got it, and as long as you're properly wearing the mask, and that's the thing that we have to educate them. And I get it, not everybody, you know, maybe they're in the hallways and they pull their mask down and they're going, but we're looking at that 15 minutes of where you, by this person, not just pass them in the hallway with your mask down. So I think there's a lot of things that we're just kind of like assuming. And I think as each classroom, we may not be able to roam the halls like we did before. There's going to have to be some different passing guidelines if we do 6 through 12. You know, the lunches are concerned. But I think we can do it. I think if we, you know, we talk about challenging curriculum, why can't we challenge ourselves in this time? And we have to still provide an education. And I think now's the time to try it. And if it doesn't work, we can always go back to hybrid 2. And we can sit here and debate all day about Harvard. And I mean, I respect your, you know, enthusiasm of reaching out to these people and getting that. But in all respect, I think, you know, the stats, again, we're an organization that works off data and stats are showing now's the time to make a move, folks. And I would really highly recommend that you guys consider going back. If we wait until the 15th, that's fine. I'm not going to argue with that. I say the sooner the better too. But that's all I'm going to say, because I think everybody knows what my vote will be. And it's not disrespect to any staff member, any parent that doesn't want. But it's just about if you could tell a story about all the emails that we get. And I'm sure staff has theirs, the parents have theirs. And I do not want this to be staff versus parents, administration versus the board. And that is not what this is about. This is truly about getting those kids an education and doing it safely. And I think we can do all that together. So I'll stop there and give everybody else their time, but thank you.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick then. I guess the way I look at this and the way I've been looking at it since the beginning is really to look at the data and the best data that we have available and the best guidance that we have. And I think what we're seeing from the trend line that Dr. Hlupnik showed was, at least in Polk County, we have a slow decline in percent positive and the number of cases. Iowa as a whole is kind of not in that place, but we're fortunately here in Polk County, we are looking like things are continually improving. I mean, prior to this change in the mask quarantine policy, I was kind of on the edge of, we're not quite there yet, but I think this makes this, it's a huge change. And I think if you look at the data, the trend in the data, you look at the change in the guidance, and then you also look you know, namely, we keep bringing up West Des Moines and Waukee. We're not seeing huge outbreaks of COVID in the schools there. I don't think there's any data to support that at this point. So I'm in agreement that I think that this is probably the time that we need to start transitioning into full-time in person. I would like to keep as many of the safeguards as we can in place. So, let's get all the kids back into their home classroom. But if we can space them out, let's space them out as best as we can. If we can be creative with the lunchtime situation and have something maybe district-wide this is kind of our standard for how we handle that, I think that would be great. And a lot of the credit to being able to do that goes to parents and the kids for wearing their masks and doing an amazing job at that. So, I mean, I think everything's moving in the right direction. Obviously, that could change. So as far as timing, I'm not opposed to doing something sooner. The only thing that's rolling around in my mind is that we're coming to the end of not a semester, a quarter. I don't know how that impacts things with planning with teachers. Is it easier to start a brand new quarter in a new learning path, or is it better to change now as we wrap up the first quarter? So that's kind of where my mind's at right now.
Don't know that I like the idea of just making the principals figure it out when it comes to the lunches, because that I don't know that there's a way to make that work without them having to have lunch in the classrooms.
I mean, we could sit here and try to guess that all day. And I mean, Dr. Lupnick could figure that out, but what the individual school, because that's the concern, is the spaces are all different. And I think to be respected of those teachers that have the smaller classrooms, it's going to put some stress on them.
Sure.
No different than, I mean, look at PE times, can the gym be used as a lunchroom, half of a lunchroom? I mean, they've got a curtain in there. Is there space to do that? I mean, I don't know. I'm not sitting here as going to say, but I think if we really put our minds to work and come up with a plan for our hybrid one, what we want it to be, it's not a standard back to school. I mean,
No,
we can't sit here and say that, but this is still got to be some form of a hybrid where you're not going to be able to have all the kids in the hall. We're going to, if we let the high school go back, they're going to have to figure out some different passing times or how they can reduce those numbers. I'm not sitting here just going to say it's easy. I know it's going to be difficult. It's going to take some time. And that's why I guess I'm not, so stressed about if we have to wait until the 15th, because now that gives them 4 weeks to plan. I would like to start tomorrow, but I know that's not feasible and it's not practical for planning, but it is going to take some work. And I know that's easy said from a board member that sits here that's not working in the schools. And I will take the heat for that.
what your fiance is. So, I mean, you get it from.
But it doesn't matter. I don't sit in her shoes. I don't sit in the teacher's shoes. And so
Okay.
that's why it's hard for me to sit here and say, this is what we expect you to do, because I don't expect things to be normal. I still think things are gonna, we are in a challenging time. And so I don't want to sit here and say that you're wrong, because I don't want to put that burden on anybody.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I'm not that person. You're not, Rick's not, none of us are in that position. And I don't feel, if I didn't run for this position, which, I put myself in this position, so I have to make a statement of what I believe the community wants.
Sure.
This is not a personal belief, because if this was a personal belief, sometime, that clouds things. This is what I think, and not to dog anybody or say this is the wrong idea, but I don't have that survey that would be very helpful to say, this is what this group wants, this is what this group wants. So I have to go off my gut feeling from what I am hearing from the people. So I said I wasn't going to say anymore, and I keep saying it, but to go on that, somebody has to make the decision. So if it starts at the top and works down, but I think the way Dirk runs his thing here is he puts a lot of, power into those administrators.
You okay?
Yeah, I just want to talk after Brett
Oh.
before you do.
Oh,
I thought you were stretching.
I was worried there for a second. I was like, is he okay?
I wasn't sure if he was doing a Fred Sanford there.
Yeah,
I just
That's what I
wanted
was
to,
worried about.
I'm going to join you, Edith.
didn't want Adam to jump in before me. Adam,
So
I worked in a school for 36 years, and 20 of those years I was an administrator that did lunch supervision. And yes, the principals can figure it out. Yes, Dirk can figure it out. The lunchrooms aren't going to get any bigger physically, but you increase the time. You let certain kids go in sooner in smaller groups. You let certain kids go in later. That would help with recess too, if at the elementary level, though there's not that many kids out there. So it's a time thing. It's not a space thing. Now, is it fair that some kids have to eat lunch at 10:30? No. But if their parents know the month of October or November, that's when they're having lunch, maybe they'll give them a lighter breakfast or whatever. Another group of kids are going to be eating later than normal. It's a time thing. It's not because we can't change the space. And we definitely need to, since they're going to take their mask off, we definitely need to keep them as far apart as possible. So as a former educator of 36 years, it's a time thing that the principals and our administration would have to work out, because we can't change the space. Although if we have any more warm days in October, I know it's kind of gotten a little cooler, I wouldn't be against certain kids taking their sack lunches outside and in May, and also when it gets warmer. Let's start doing that, because it is, the more you can space them, the better. And I don't want to just throw them all in there, and lunch is an issue, but I think eating in the classroom is, just mentally, I can't see that happening. But it's, to answer you as a former educator, it's a time thing. It's going to have to change. And I think that can be done. I think parents need to be aware when their kids are eating lunch. If it's really early, they need to know that. If it's really late, maybe they need to have snacks sometime. I don't know if the rest of you understand what I'm trying to say. But again, we can't change the size of our gymnasiums or cafeterias. They are what they are. But we can change the times.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that feels like we're kind of getting into the weeds of it, and then unless that changes your, I think we have a very capable administration that can figure that out, with creative ideas like Rick was bringing up. I did want to bring up something that we don't talk about very often, that was, I think, brought to all of our attention, which is the students that are learning online right now. And I think that in moving from hybrid 2 to hybrid 1, there inevitably, I mean, we'll see soon enough, but be an increase in those online only students, because some people are not going to be comfortable with that. When that happens, I think we need to really look at our staffing of that and make sure that we're providing enough support for them. So, do we need to add more teachers? And I don't know if there's already a plan in place for that, that maybe Joe Allen has, in terms of, this number of online learners requires, this number of teachers, but just to make sure that we're not forgetting about them. Just because they chose to learn from home doesn't mean they shouldn't get the same or as high a quality education as we can provide. So I just want to make sure that we're actively looking at that and watching those numbers and making sure we don't have, one teacher per 100 students or something like that, because it's just going to be unattainable. So
How do those ratios currently look?
We're getting tight in a couple different grade levels, but we're still okay at this point. But yes, there has been talk and look at what happens next if we see an uptick.
Okay.
Is there, in your mind, Dirk, a transition time? Is it better to transition at the quarter, or is it better to just do it as soon as possible and it makes no difference?
The quarter makes a lot of sense to me if that's the direction that the board is headed. I think there's also potentially some value into a phasing, as you were talking K5, and then maybe secondary. That it's worth a conversation. I think if that's the direction that the board's headed.
I'll say on the scheduling, that's one of the things that board leadership sets the agenda in consultation with Dirk. And I've been out the last few days off the grid, thankfully, but socially distanced in the great outdoors, the Western United States. But it's something that happened while I was gone, of course, is this guidance change, which I guess we'll sort that out. I understand the difference between the state and the local, and will the local interpret it differently? We'll have to see. That is a sea change. Apparently, we'll see. But as far as scheduling, we talked about, well, could we put it on the agenda tonight? I didn't know Lori. I knew Lori was away. I wasn't sure. Maybe she did say she wasn't going to be back for the meeting, but I'm glad that we did put it on for tonight, because I just thought we had just decided the last meeting, well, it's to the end of the semester or quarter. Didn't want to whipsaw and get on each side of this issues. And we get them because we get the emails. There's people on each side, and I get it. I think reasonable minds can differ on this. There's a lot of uncertainty. But the data is looking good, even without that change in guidance. So I guess, for the staff and our people planning, we probably could have decided something tonight and had a different vote than last time. And of course, if this data keeps trending, I think what we're kind of saying here, just listening to the conversation, what I'm hearing is that there probably will be a change. And so we need to be able to plan for that, and people's minds get wrapped around, okay, it's not going to look like school as usual, no matter what happens, but it's going to look different than what we're doing right now. And I think if Dirk is recommending, hey, semester or quarter, obviously it's the board decision, but I would think we would probably go with that and then make the change into the next quarter, but give our people now that time between now and then to make those changes. And it sounds like that maybe the elementary grades might be the first thing in, and then others, but.
So tagging off of something Chad said earlier about the mitigation factors and trying to maintain as many of those as we can. I think the six of us would all agree that masks is a non-starter. We're going to maintain our mask mandate. Yeah. Okay. Hand hygiene. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. We've done the extra cleaning and disinfectant stuff. Contact tracing is not handled by us. It's done by Polk County. So because we're talking about moving away from 6 foot distancing in terms of social distancing, is there a minimum that we're willing to enforce, or is it just whatever it takes? So you're okay with 6 inches?
I'm okay with whatever we need to keep all of our resources. So we'll have some classrooms that maybe 3, some that are 5. Some that are 6, and if we have some that are 1 foot. We're not being told anything different than they're not going to have to quarantine. So,
Well, but we are being told specific. There's no one that says less than 3 foot. That's my concern. There's no organization that says less than 3 foot. So
Well, is this even a realistic scenario?
what do you mean?
I get where you're going with the 6-inch thing, but are there situations within our schools where we can't get 2-3 feet apart?
My understanding is at the high school is that trying to get to 3 would be a maximum and would be an outlier.
Maximum what? I'm sorry, Adam.
The 3 feet would be a maximum and would be an outlier.
Oh,
That's what my understanding with talking with some of the administration there is that would not be something they could do in a large percentage of their classes.
that'd be the
We've been collecting that data this week. I don't have all of it for each grade level and each building.
Okay.
I don't have high school data with me. It hasn't been given to me yet, but that's part of what we've been collecting to be able to give the board. As soon as I get that, you'll have it to help inform your decisions as you move forward.
And I mean, it could be that when we present this, if we stick it and say, hey, it's a minimum of 3 feet, or hey, there may be no minimum, that may make parents' decisions different. Because there may be some parents that are okay with 3 feet that aren't okay with 1.5 feet. Because,
I think, Adam, we're still going to recommend 6 feet. We're going to do like,
Yeah.
I think Tom said last meeting, we're going
Sure.
to do the best we can. And when we can, we will.
but
Will
is
there
there a
be-
minimum though?
I say no. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't, especially when you say high school. I mean, that's a group that's mobile on their own. They've got driver's license. They can go and do whatever they want anyway. So the fact that we have them in school again with masks on, we're providing a safer environment than what they're doing outside of school.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is do we try to find alternatives, for instance, using some of our alternative classrooms and having, for instance, if there's a classroom that can't fit all of them in to that individual room, having whatever the excess overflow into, say, like the media room or into one of the other extra rooms that's not being used as a classroom, and, Skyping in, essentially, for lack of a better term.
I wouldn't, no, I want that face-to-face instruction.
Yeah, if it requires us to split a class, I
Yeah.
don't, cost benefit's not there in doing that.
Yeah, we don't want to split classes
So
for any reason.
obviously our opinions differ in this, but what's it going to take for you to be comfortable in getting kids back? Because this virus is going to be here.
Sure.
We don't have a magic pill yet. We don't know when that's going to come. And, trying to sit here and put, a number on something again is very difficult to do. But I guess what are you looking at personally, so the other 6 of us know that we're missing? Because
No, because so here's the thing. None of us are epidemiologists. None of us are virologists. The only ones who are doctors in here are Dirk and Gary, and his is a Juris Doctorate, which is a whole different type of expert. There is not an organization on the planet that says that we should be going less than 3 feet. So why are we deciding that it's okay just because we can get away with it because Iowa Department has done something that no one else has sanctioned?
so
Because we're worried about our kids.
what if
I
they
mean, kids are
say-
number one, right?
I'm not saying they're not.
Right, but I don't think we talk about our kids enough. I don't think we talk about everything we're reading and talking to them about as far as the struggles they're going through, the depression they're going through. I mean, it's real. I
I'm
mean, this
not
is
saying
real.
it's
So we're
not.
saying, hey, there may be some risk and nobody can quantify that. Nobody.
Sure.
Doesn't matter if it's an epidemiologist or anybody else from Harvard, Yale, anybody. No one can put a definitive thing on there. What we do know is definitive is the damage that is happening. Because they're telling us. I mean, they are telling us they're depressed. They're telling us that they're not doing very well in school, that they're struggling, right? We do know that the suicide rates are up. So there are hard numbers that tell us how much pain the kids are in, period. So that's what I'm worried about. That's what we don't talk about enough is our kids. That's why we're here.
But those rates that you're talking about, the ones that you're trying to utilize there, have been up throughout this, even throughout the summertime when they weren't even in school anyways, because of the situation we're seeing in 2020. That's not unique to schools being in hybrid or schools being closed. That's because we're in one of the most difficult years that anyone alive can actually remember.
No, it's not from what we're reading from our kids. Our kids are specifically telling them the struggles that they have because they're not in school, because they're socially isolated. So I'd argue that 100 times over.
But they
because
were socially isolated in the summer as well when school wasn't around.
Yeah, they trend up and they're still trending up.
But that's
And
because
we
it's
have
an
it
ongoing thing.
straight from parents telling us how much change their kids are, how they're struggling. So yes, we have it straight. Let's focus on the kids. What do they need? That's what that.
Would it make sense to just get the data about what spacing looks like? And are there any concern areas where we're less than 3 feet? And what does that look like? And then we can go from there.
The 6-inch thing, I don't know where you came up with that. I mean, does that mean kids can't date? I mean, what are you thinking?
We can't control what people do outside of here.
Where are you thinking 6 inches? I mean, not even football. I mean, yeah, when they tackle, but I mean.
Oh, you can go to, I'll bring it up. That's a good point, Rick.
Yeah.
I go to the football games and our kids, no masks, standing shoulder to shoulder. And that frustrates me. I love football. My son plays football.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me. I would never have said anything if you wouldn't have brought it up, but we're not being consistent, folks.
Yeah.
We are letting some things kind of go
6
off to the
inches is
wayside
ridiculous.
when those football players should be spread out. We got 100 yards and they're in the 20-yard line or 20 yards of or whatever the distance is. And we're not being consistent. So we either have to be consistent on everything. And I agree. I don't know what 6 inches is gonna, if they're saying you got a double mask, a double,
Ply.
whatever you call it,
Layer
double
mask.
ply mask, and we can social distance as we can, I think that says a lot. And I sit here and I know this is making a lot of people mad listening. But it's reality, folks. And there's not a certain day, there's not a certain time that's going to be best for everybody. But I'm sitting here as we're talking and I'm looking at our core values. And that is something that we probably need to read to ourselves every meeting. And when I was president, this is one of the things that I take pride in that I chose to add was to read that at each meeting. And if I had my way again, I would add core values and priorities. And the first thing up there is students first. Then it's high expectations, collaboration, integrity, stewardship, adaptability, and respect. All those things I think apply, especially the students first. And I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not for the teachers, because I am. They may think differently by my vote or whatever it is, and I can live with that. But the students first, that has to say something, folks. And we're thinking about my job needs to be easier, or it's working. Are we really looking at the students? I mean, you guys seen the same emails I have, and that is heartbreaking when, and I'm sure you got the students' emails that, it's not very many, but we've got a few
Gotten one.
that are telling us, I want to be back in school. And that's where I think, and I'm actually going to ask Patrick for his perspective on this, because we have a student leader here, and he's a senior. These are the kids' times. Parents, teachers, me as a board member, I'm going to be short-lived, and what I do here right now will impact a lot of things, and I realize that. But I really want us to focus on the students first. And we as adults may not like some of the decisions, but what's best for kids is not always best for adults. And that was told by me by Denny O'Leary, used to be a principal for Southeast Polk. And those words have always stuck with me through the time that I met that man. And I really, truly believe that we may not like some things, but the kids are going to adapt. It's adaptability. They will fall in line. They will do pretty much what you ask. Sometimes it has to be a little more forceful in ways, that's why we have consequences for the things we do. So if they don't want to wear masks, we've already said, we are willing to step up, and, if we have to reprimand somebody for not wearing their mask, hey, you got to understand there's other people here that besides your personal belief. And that's what we have to do. We have to be, good stewardship in that. All those things, folks. So I keep saying I'm going to not stop talking, but it's, that.
What you got, Patrick? Oh,
Yeah, give him a mic.
Woo, step up to the mic.
My opinion on school in general, the hybrid model, or
Just whatever you want to say, Patrick. You tell us, because we don't get to hear from a lot of students. We're hearing from parents. We're hearing from teachers. We have our own personal feelings that are getting in there. And I think we need to hear from a student leader.
yeah. So first of all, I'd like to say I appreciate all your consideration throughout the school year for the hybrid model. And I think that me and a lot of students would agree that we are frustrated with the 1 or 2 day or 3 day in person, because the social aspect is not there. And if it is there, it's very limited. Lunch, I eat in my classroom every day I'm there, except every other Wednesday. So even when I'm eating lunch, I'm on my phone still, not even interacting with anyone. But either option, there's going to be pros or cons to it. So I think that, if we outweigh the cons of the pros, whichever option that would be, I'm not voting or anything, and I can't say which one would be best for everyone, but I think trying to keep that social aspect as high, like Tom said, or Mr. Nave said, the depression rates and the mental health is really weighing on kids in high school, at least as far as I can tell from my peers. But I think just trying to get people to first their education to get higher and be able to keep that education the same as last year, and also the social aspect to try to get it where it used to be.
Thank you, Mr. Tunks.
so I haven't been to one of our football games yet this year. I watched them online, but of course that's distance and you don't really see the sidelines as well. So has there been any talk with the coaches about maintaining some of that social distance? Because that sounds like a lack of enforcement, not a lack of space or availability.
Yeah,
I think that just shows that things can be done, that we're not, kids aren't getting they're not spreading the virus. I mean, I think
Well-
that's just it's a good example, but it's a bad example.
Well, it's also outdoors.
It is outdoors, but still, the recommendation is still 6 feet out, if you're outdoors and if you're that close. So as much as, it's a topic of concern, it's not a concern. to me because That's a perfect example to show that those guys are standing shoulder to shoulder. They're sweating on each other. And the virus, is it there? Yes, it's there, but it's not spreading like wildfire like we think it is. And so it's, like I said, it's a good example, but it's a bad example. And I'm not trying to say, put any blame on coaches or, the athletic department for that, because I think that's just the way life is. I've said it earlier on, we've been at Adventureland, we've been in restaurants, we've been shopping, and people are doing their normal things that they want to do in life. And we just can't hold these families back if they want their kids in school. Now, I will say, just to make it clear, we still have that option available for people that want to stay home. If you feel you're not comfortable, and I think that's the choice that each family needs to make, and I will say we have to step up our game to protect our staff, because if we're going to, me as a decision maker here, one of the people to vote, I do now that steps my game up to make sure that they're protected. I am worried about teachers' mental health just as much as I am the students. Back to you, Adam.
To answer your question, our football coaches are doing a tremendous job. Being a former athletic director and an activities director, and Brad Zlutovich and Pug Starcevich both played for me. I know them very well. I've talked to them. I've watched practice. Like you said, it's hard to see the games now because it's limited. They're doing the best. They deserve that #1 ranking because of what they do off the field as well as what they do on the field. They're distancing as much as they can. Their drills are far apart. I trust you. And all the other sports in the falls needs to be commended, like Altoona Elementary. I mean, our volleyball team, our swim team, our cross country teams, our I'll have to say it, boys golf team, they're doing a great job. And to question what they're doing is they're out, I know that volleyball and swimming is inside, but the rest of them are outside and they're doing a great job. We trust them. Jason Campbell and Steve Pettit watch closely what they do. And those kids need to be out there, just like the kids in elementary need that recess. Please don't question that our football coaches are not doing what they can. They are. I strongly believe that.
I completely agree with that, Rick.
Well,
Thank you for
mind you, I'm
bringing that
not
up.
questioning the coaches.
You
In my
said,
mind,
is our football coaches
no,
doing
I
enough?
said, is the enforcement not there? And no way was that directed towards the coaches. That could very well be the captains. We're talking about children who have driver's license. We're talking about children who have jobs. We're talking about children who very soon will be going off to college and being adults. They should be able to maintain that themselves. So it may not be the coaches. And at no point in time did I say it was the coaches.
Well, I thought you addressed the football team,
No, well, but that's the team, not the individual coaches. And
but they're in charge of the team.
well, but so are the captains in charge of their teams as well. And each individual is in charge of themselves. So, I mean, there's certainly that aspect to it as well. Here's the thing. So for me, I am not comfortable doing away with all social distancing. I'm willing to agree that 3 foot is something we can look at because of these statistics that we have currently going on and because of the data that's there. I am nervous as all get out by the Iowa Department of Public Health's new guidance. There is no backing for it anywhere. It is completely in contradiction to what the CDC says. And while I will follow it, it makes me nervous because there's nothing precedented about it. There's no actual support for it. So will we follow it? Sure, it's our state's guidance. We don't really have a choice.
If nobody's sitting up here nervous about any decision we've made up here, we're all in the wrong position. And I'm not taking this decision on my end lightly. And I don't think I don't think you are, Adam. I think I respect your decision on that. I just, obviously we disagree. And, so, I mean, we have to be able to make our decisions based off what's right or what we think is right for Southeast Polk. And I've said that before, we shouldn't worry about what West Des Moines doing or Waukee. They are kind of West Des Moines, west side versus the east side type thing. We have to do what we think is right for our Southeast Polk students, but keeping everybody in mind. So no decision is easy.
Sure.
I am nervous as heck, you know, for hybrid one, because I know there's that potential. There's that potential of walking out, you know, onto the street and getting struck by lightning when it's raining. So,
Use the Rick technique, raise my
might have to
hand.
get buzzed.
Yeah.
Well, that's what those
kidding.
used to be for, I guess not,
Yeah.
but
And I'm not afraid to, I admit I'm talking way too much, but I just,
So what I was going to say is, I think we need to move forward with something along those lines. We need to implement as many mitigation strategies as we can. That's reasonable. And I think we need to look at the numbers and see where we go. And, you know, if it's consistent with what we've seen in some of our neighboring districts, everything might be great. If we see those numbers change, we need to be willing to be adaptable ourselves and go a different direction. So if people go back to school and we see big spikes, we need to make a change and we need to do it quickly. But I mean, at this point, with the trends we're seeing in Polk County, with the neighboring districts, with the new guidance, it seems like we're getting kind of a preponderance of support for going that direction.
Sure.
So I think we just do our best and we see what kind of plan the administration can put together for getting back into school.
And piggybacking that, I echo that exactly, as far as seeing big changes and making decisions quickly. So, I mean, I'd like to do that now, just as far as I think our kids could use as much help as they could before semester ends to help with our grades,
yeah,
as far as that goes.
and I agree on that, because I don't, as much as I think waiting for the semester is kind of an important part, or the quarter, because they're in a
Quarter, yeah.
flow.
Did I say semester? Sorry.
I think you can,
Quarter.
I think once, if you do away with the online portion, that puts more of a concentration back on that classroom of getting that. So I think it's just, it can enhance it,
just to clarify, you mean the online for hybrid 2 only, not the 100% online,
not the 100%. I think if you're 100% online, that stays on students as part of the hybrid too. Thanks for just clarifying that, because that does make a difference. I don't want to freak a lot of people out. That 100%, I think is obviously
separate.
Needs to be an option. Now, if I, had the answers again, I mean, I would love to see being able to have all three options, a hybrid 1, 2, and online, but I know that's like
We need a whole
That's
lot of staff and a whole lot of
spitting
buildings.
in the wind there. You're just asking for trouble.
Can I say something that I tried to get at in the last meeting that I think is something that's been lost with a lot of our parents? We right now are not in the same place where Waukee and West Des Moines are, because they have a significantly higher percentage of their student
Online.
body online. We might get there, but in terms for us to get close to where they're at, we'd need almost another 500 to 600 students to choose online. So it's not an apples to apples comparison at this point in time. So while it may seem easy to say, hey, we're almost as big as they are, it's not even close. Because I mean, even with just West Des Moines, they're about 1,000, 1,400 students larger than we are, something like that on any given year. They're like 8,400, something like that. But they have more buildings than we do, and currently they're at a little over 25%, I want to say, for online participation. So I mean, they've got significantly less kids in their classrooms on average. Now, is that an excuse? No, we'll still figure something out, and our system will be better than theirs, just like it normally is. Welcome to Southeast Polk. We do things better.
That's right. It's not apples to apples. It's golden apples to their apples.
And I'm not an apple guy. I'm more of a prime rib kind of guy. So let's stick with that. They can keep their apples. I think in general, the six of us have an agreement, K through 8, that we would be willing to send everybody back. The sticking point we have is high school, because I'm not there for forfeiting 3 feet as a minimum.
Right. But what'd you say about them? They're adults. They take care of themselves. They have driver's licenses. They have jobs, and they do what they want out in the community.
Sure, but here's the problem. We have to take care of them when they're in our building.
I
So
think
I just pointing them a mask.
Okay. So we make it a policy that they're required to, just like they're required to hold certain requirements or certain standards of behavior to maintain certain eligibility. I mean, if we have kids that don't, if we have kids that vape, they get stripped of eligibility. If we have kids that, get arrested for different things, they lose eligibility. If we have kids that get caught for drinking, they lose eligibility. Maybe we start putting restrictions on for the protection of the community. Because otherwise, I mean, at what point in time are we not lowering our requirements because somebody else isn't doing it right? That's my concern. Like I
guess I'm not following what you're.
Sure. So
saying.
you're saying that the problem is that there are people that won't wear masks, there are people that won't social distance, there are people that go to Adventureland and everything else like that. My question is why are we catering to those people and trying to lower our standards? That's my concern, is that we're allowing the people who are causing the problem to make us go back to increase the possibility of there actually being a problem.
I just think we're doing what's best for the kids because there's no one that can tell us that a foot spacing is not good enough. They recommend 6. They say 6 is better. Well, of course 6 is better than 1. But there's not a single study out there that says that transmission between or 1 foot or 2 foot or 3 foot, right? They recommend it.
The bare
There's no
minimum
hard data.
recommendation is 3 feet.
There's no hard data. There's no classrooms or businesses or anything else that have went 1 foot and they said, oh, we can't do that. Now we got to increase it to 2. And we have to increase it to 3.
So you're okay. Okay. So we're using our kids as guinea pigs. Got it.
No, we're not going to use guinea pigs. We're going with the guidance. They're saying
The guidance says 3 feet is a minimum.
You can
Where does it
walk
say
into
that?
Hy-Vee and say, you got to walk down this aisle because it has an arrow. Are people going to do it? No, you have to figure out the balance of how we choose to do that. So using them as guinea pigs,
No.
that-
Put them in the best environment possible.
so,
I think the
so
only time they're less than 3 feet, Adam, might be passing periods, and that doesn't last 15 minutes.
No, no,
not
no.
next to each other 15
No, in the
minutes.
classrooms, they'd be less than 3 feet. At some of those tables, they're going to be less than 2.
So you put 3 foot on it, those kids are never going to go back to school.
No, I think we could find a way to make it work. It just isn't going.
We talked about earlier is that we as a district have to step our game up and figure out, like Rick said, and I think that's a very important thing to remember, is it's time. It's
Sure.
not, it doesn't necessarily mean things aren't going to be normal still. And that's,
Well, and I'm not advocating for normal. I'm
well,
not
but-
advocating for normal.
but if we, you take K through 8 first and put them back, and then the high school, right now, we don't hear from the elementary kids. They're not the ones typing us letters. It's the high school parents saying, AP issues, just general
Sure.
education issues. I'd have to go back and take a survey, I guess, of what breakdown of who's elementary, who's high school, but it's an overall concern for parents in general
Right.
that
I think high school kids need to turn back to normal more than any other
yeah, they're
one of our categories. They're the ones that mentally, I have a kindergartner and a second grader grandsons. Kindergartner knows no different because he's never been to school. The second grader has not made a comment. But I still think they can go back to school 100%. But I think the high school kids, the ones that are preparing for college, ones that are doing everything for a lot of the reasons Tom's mentioned several times, and Brett has too, we need to get them back. And I still struggle, President Fisher, with the October 30th. Waiting a whole month, and I used to be a teacher. I understand the quarterly thing. Quarterly thing is not an elementary issue. It is a high school secondary issue. But I wish we would at least talk about possibly, moving that up.
Accelerating.
Huh?
Accelerating the time.
Accelerating.
So what if we accelerated the timeline for elementary? Or
Well,
are you saying the quarterly doesn't matter?
see, I disagree, especially and no offense, Patrick, you're a senior, yeah?
Yep.
You went to college?
Yeah,
What college?
I'm undecided. Still
Harvard.
applying.
Going to Harvard.
I don't know about that.
So if we're talking about preparing them for college, in all reality, they should probably be getting used to taking things online.
That's what's happening now.
And that doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. So, I get what you're saying about the mental health aspect. I absolutely 100% want to find a way for us to get everyone back in. I'm not willing to completely ditch social distancing. There's no one that would support that in the medical community as far as going completely away from all social distancing. 6 foot when possible, not any distancing at all when possible.
Right.
Even though the CDC or the Polk County doesn't acknowledge that we have shields and we have desk dividers, I think that says something for our district that we are trying to mitigate that risk. And so I think, again, we can do what we feel is right, and we can add more protections. Again, it's not, with the exception of passing times, the elementary kids may have to eat their lunch in their, but they're doing it now with taking their masks off.
Yep.
You have to figure out, is that, I don't know if that's the only time they take their masks off. I would like to think that
They get breaks too.
I know some teachers are taking their kids outside when it's nice. Next week, we're going to be back in the 70s. So I encourage those kids to get out. It doesn't even hurt the kids to get out. When it's 30 degrees, go out and put your winter coat on and walk around the building, get some exercise, So we have to learn to make those changes and figure that out. Again, the 7 of us can sit here and try to guess it all day, but it really comes down to Dr. Lupnick and his team to put this in motion.
Yep.
But I don't think, I think the 3 foot would just, it's not going to do us any better than we're at now. And we would never get back to.
Disagree. I think there's ways to work around it. My reading of the policy and the way that this works for us is that you actually don't need board action to make this. Is that correct? It's at your discretion along with advisement from Gary.
Is that the emergency stuff you're talking
As
about?
long as there's a public health emergency.
Which there still is, correct?
Yes, I don't know when it runs out.
Let me ask this, and Rick, to my defense, I have voted every time to get kids back. You haven't.
Right.
So
I told you I changed.
I understand.
Yeah.
And minds can change, and they could change again. But as far as timing, I was going to ask Dirk, I know we can set special meetings. I'm reluctant to do that, but we can do that. But how much time, like if the 15th, which is our next scheduled meeting, how much time would it take to make a wholesale change?
Would or should?
Well, yeah, there's that.
It depends on what you're asking by wholesale change.
Well, and I suppose that depends on what the board would do, but from what we're presently doing as a hybrid 2 to hybrid 1, I guess.
So there again, we have to define a hybrid 1 because on the original hybrid, it's separating classes. It's using the specialty teachers as,
Right.
and I am not for that.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't
So
think
assume that
anyone
that's out
is.
the door. We're 6 feet where possible. In terms of
That's like putting classrooms back together, giving
right,
teachers.
right. What does that look like in terms of a planning period to transition?
Right. If we would decide to do something different at the 15th meeting, I would hate to say, oh, that's on a Thursday. Well, Monday, that's the way it's going to be unless,
Unless we give them notice now.
right.
Well, but in a way we can. We've got 6 of us here. I want Laura to be part of the conversation if she chooses to be, but we can give guidance to administration to say, please start, what it would look like, because when the 15 come, that's 2 weeks away, and I think 2 weeks is, enough time, because it wouldn't change if it was the 15th and we're voting on it, then we still have 2 weeks. And I would hope to think that they're kind of formulating a plan with that's why we're talking about it, knowing that the board could very easily go to this, want them to do that. So I would think there's probably some planning going on and in preparation for that. I would hope so.
What's the spacing look like for our K through 5?
It's different in every building.
Okay.
We have some buildings where we could maintain 6-foot social distancing at all grade levels.
Okay.
Most buildings look more like a combination of anywhere from 4 feet to 6 feet. We do have one building where we've got several grade levels where that 3 feet would be a maximum
Okay.
at this point.
If we did 3 feet, could we get it done?
Doesn't sound like it in that one.
I mean, again, without going back.
Yeah,
in more detail, I can't answer that.
that's fair.
Do you guys have? I don't know. What do you guys think?
The only other thing I would just mention would just be from the community, because you did vote, and you did set it at the 31st. I don't know what kind of plans people have made regarding whatever that might be, locked into daycare. I don't know, but I mean, that's just a consideration as I sit here that I would bring up.
That's very fair.
I mean, I understand the desire to move quickly, especially since we're looking at the data today and the new guidelines today and saying, you know, if we could flip a switch tomorrow, we probably would, we would have a majority vote, I think, that would decide that. But for all those other considerations, I'm wondering if it's better to vote on the 15th and go hybrid 1, hopefully starting the next quarter. That gives everybody plenty of time to plan. We can figure out the lunch situation. We can figure out maybe the places where there is a foot or two of distance. Is there something creative we can do there to add extra layers of mitigation to make everybody comfortable? It just seems like that timing it's an easier transition for everybody. That's just my perspective, though.
Speaking of mitigation factors, I know that we have some of our staff who are only wearing face shields. Are we going to continue to allow that in lieu of the new guidance? Or are we going to make a?
Principals and HR have been dealing with that over the last 2 days.
Okay.
It's a little more complicated than a yes or a no.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, my concern is that if we've got teachers, and there's one of mine specifically who is a friend of mine who I know he prefers to wear the face shield and not a face mask, but he's also a teacher who likes to roam between the students and talk to them. So he would be one of the ones that would get in trouble real quick because he's not wearing a face mask. So it just popped into my head that would be a consideration. What kind of other mitigation strategies, Chad, are you thinking of that we could put into place if we were to go below 3 feet?
Well, I mean, I think if there's additional dividers that we can use, or if there's just a creative way that we can lay out the classroom that provides more spacing. I mean, without seeing those specifics, I don't know. That's why I think it'd be good to get that data compiled so we can say, just like we do with our attendance sheets that we get where it shows each classroom and here are the hot spots or here's where it's locked in. It'd be nice to know that in terms of distancing, like these are the classrooms where it's going to be a challenge, and then get creative with that. And maybe there's a few situations where we need to split things up a little bit, but I mean, it sounds like elementary wise, we're not looking too bad. It's more, the secondary schools that we'll have to get creative with. But I'd like to see what does that even look like? Because otherwise we're just making things up at this point.
Well, and I would like them to do it. I think, we're getting way in the weeds on a lot of these things. And maybe that's part of the role as president. You're kind of, it's a unique role. It's kind of the interface between the board and administration, but I think we ought to leave those decisions to our administration to figure out. They know the rooms and know the hot spots, and let them get creative with how to address those things.
But are we also giving them the authority to say no? Or are we saying get creative because we've told you to?
We're giving them the direction that we would like them to use discretion. Social distance, and when I say social distance, that's not a number on it. That's just spread out as much as you can through your day. Wear your face masks. You make sure our parents, which the emails went out, but we have to do our part to make the children sure. And it sounds like we have plenty of face masks to hand out to kids that that don't. We do our part to make sure everybody's keeping in line. That's a hard thing to do because that can take away from the education piece. But if we're asking our teachers to do that, we have to give them, again, the power to make the choices for their room. You know, it goes from building to room. You know, I mean, everybody has to have a piece. You know, if the teacher's not given their, and I forget the word that I want to use, but you know, we have to. It's no different than what I'm thinking of is the safety drills, shooter drills. Each classroom and teacher has to make decisions best for what is right for them at that moment and that time. You know, so what they do in their classroom, as far as that, they have to be the ones to understand. We set the guideline, and I agree with Gary, we're way into the weeds. We just say we would like the administration to move forward with a back to school plan of 100%. And then they're going to present the plan to us on, I'm assuming the 15th is what I'm hearing, maybe the majority, if that's what.
Do we even back up again? I don't think he needs to present the board a plan. I think he needs to present Gary and Tom a plan. There's no board required action for us to change to a model. If we tell him that, if we indicate to him, even without a vote, that we would like to see a plan that puts this into place, knowing Dirk the way we all do, he's going to have us a plan. And then we don't have to vote on it. They just have to.
I would jump in, not to cut you off, I apologize, but in something as large as this, I think it needs to be a board vote.
Okay.
Because
for preference sake.
Right.
Okay.
And I think that the piece that you're talking about, and I respect that Dirk has the right to, once we make a decision, that if things go south, if this plan that we are asking them to formulate does not work and we start seeing a spike, he has the right to change that without coming back to board, because that's the right thing to do at that time. So I think that's where you get it maybe a little confused, that we still have to, we should take action as a board, because that is what we are, the governing body. He has a right to overrule that if the choice we make does not go as planned, and we have to be prepared for that as well.
Sure, I don't think that's actually correct.
If we start going and numbers going high, absolutely, he has the right to go in there and say, this isn't working, it's a pandemic, I'm changing this.
Correct, but at that point in time, we could also check him if we really chose to.
We could, but I think you'd be a fool to do that.
I don't disagree. So I agree that we're in the weeds. I think it's important that we're in the weeds, though, because I think that it tells our district, our staff, and our students that we're thinking about this thoroughly and we're going through it. One last thing, and then call it a night. Talk to me about busing. How do we make busing work if we're fully back? Can we?
What I've been told is that we can, with the addition of just a couple routes, but that does mean 2 to a seat. But everything that Director Schultz shared with us still applies at this point, because that's the way he told us from the very beginning.
So should we verbally kind of make a plan for the 19th?
15th?
No, 19th. We come back to vote on the 15th. But if we say, hey, we've got 18 days with the expectation that we'll be going back to hybrid 1 on the 19th, I'd give the kids 2 weeks. What do you guys think?
So
Well, that's 2 weeks.
I
to
think you're
prepare.
tiptoeing into an action, and this isn't an action item. I'd caution a little bit there.
Preparation.
Well, and my concern is one, going back to what both Chad and Dirk were saying about the integrity of the community's already made plans through the 31st. So is it good to do there? And then secondly, is there something about making a transition in quarter and not 2 weeks before the quarter ends? Is there any actual benefit, educationally speaking? Yeah, you can chime in here. You're more than welcome to chime in, Patrick. I'm sorry, I'm turning away from you because there's more people over here. I apologize for that. Also, I'm camera shy, but you're kind of blocking it right now. So stay right, no, stay right there. Good job. Is there an educational benefit to going back for those 2 weeks, week and a half? I'm sorry, am I not being picked up on the microphone?
You are.
Yeah. No, in.
I'm an ugly man.
You gotta admit that's good.
Don't misunderstand me. I'm an ugly man. Got a face made for radio. But is there, in your mind, is there benefit educationally speaking to those 2 weeks with the quarter being almost wrapped?
I can't speak for the teachers and the entire student body for the high school or all grade levels specifically, because I'm not in those positions, but I think any gained instructional time is valued, whether it's 2 weeks, a month, or 2 months. I just, for me personally, I would think the sooner the better, but I, again, can't speak for the other parties.
I'd say well said, Patrick. Say Patrick for president.
Patrick, I just want to thank you for your input tonight because it has, and I know, and I'm not sitting here saying you're speaking for everybody at the high school, but as a student leader, and that's why we're here, because we've been elected to make those decisions. And so you are a part of this, even though you're not here with us every month. Your leadership team, I would hope you guys are discussing it as well as the student leadership that on what your thoughts are. So I appreciate everything you said tonight, and take in consideration what he said as far as thoughts of the high school. So
I really appreciate your comments too, Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
So it sounds like we have a majority one way or the other to get students back. The difference at this point in time is whether it's a 5-vote or 6-vote majority based on social distancing at the high school level.
well, yeah, I'm not going to put a time limit on it. I think the direction should be just given that administration will take the 2 weeks to formulate the plan and be prepared that the board may say it may not be a 2-week turnaround, because this is a notice of our intention. It's unofficial, but we've got there is a plan. I mean, an opportunity that once that vote is made, it could be the next day. You know,
I mean, I guess
it's real.
There's no school the next day.
Okay, 2 days. So. So there would be
That is
some-
another consideration as you're looking at the
That's-
timeline.
That's a good planning day.
So I guess my preference would be that we do it at the quarter end. That would be my first preference. If we were going to try to do it sooner, then I would think we'd want to call a special board meeting and vote sooner. That way there's certainty around it, because right now we're not, there's no board action here. We're just talking about it. So
Correct.
we can say, hey, everybody, be prepared. It's probably coming, but there's nothing official. So it'd be nice to have the official word and then have a time frame that they can adjust lesson plans or whatever they need to do. And parents can adjust to with, childcare providers or, whatever they're doing with work too. So I think, if we can get it to the end of the month, I think that would be an easier transition for a lot of reasons. If we want to do it sooner, then I would like to see us act sooner on our vote and give them more time to move forward with certainty.
I think Joanne wants to speak up real
Yeah.
quick. And
Thanks, Brett. I just had one thing to add to that. Well, actually two. October 16th is a planned professional development day. So we do have multiple things. Well, not multiple things. We do have a good day of professional learning to support teachers on that particular day. And again, this will be a board decision, but one additional layer of context I would like to add to that is that those families who have chosen to go fully online, we asked them to commit to that until October 30th. And so should there be a decision made for hybrid 1, while there might be some families who choose to go into fully remote as a result of that, there may be some families, and some families have already talked to me, that at the conclusion of October 30th, they might be interested in joining the hybrid 1 pathway. So I just think that's another layer of context to think about, is the 1,200 students that we currently have in remote learning. to allow them a time period to think about what their next steps might look like as well. And for now, they have committed to being fully remote until October 30th.
Thank you. That's a good point. So,
Anything for the good of the cause?
Anything else, board? Talked out?
kind of.
All right. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.